welcome to the 397th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of extra exclusive bonus podcast content every single week. I often talk about like old comic books. We're kind of doing a John Byrne's Fantastic Four run from the mid-'80s. Maybe switch it up a little bit soon. Do another off of mind topic. Do something. We'll figure it out. I need to figure it out. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. What is happening this week? So, as you may know, and as several of my students have asked me, are you going to see the Minecraft movie? I'm like, no way. Not going to happen. So, that movie is out, and if you're into it, that is totally fine. It's not something that I ever really, I'm not really into Minecraft. It wasn't my thing. I just never did it. I've mentioned before, my daughter and her cousins all played, were into it, played into it, build. I mean, it's always so cool and fun watching them, share their worlds and everything like that. But for me, the bigger issue is just if you look, I don't know, Jack Black, his type of humor. Some people like it. I don't really care for it. Sometimes it feels too forced. It's too much, and it's just like just tone it down. And it doesn't have to be somewhat like in your face type of thing. Some people like that, and again, totally fine. Jason Momoa, he can be fine. Sometimes he's a little extreme as well, which is probably what the role is calling for. So there's that. It just doesn't look like it's something for me, and I don't know if it's geared towards younger kids. Just some of the things that are happening. So it's at a 49% right now on Rotten Tomatoes. It's been going up and down. So I'm sure by the time you listen to this, it's going to it'll have changed again. It's at an 83% on the popcorn meter. And that's the important thing. That's what matters. What that means is probably people who have seen it and took the time to review it, they probably enjoyed it, and that's fine. But the same thing can be said for Snow White. Everyone wants to complain about how bad Snow White is or whatever. But if you look at that has a Rotten Tomato score of 40%. So 40% compared to 49%. Not much different. And then the audience popcorn meter thing. So again, 83 on Minecraft. It's a 73, and this I feel like has gone down. This was higher recently. It's a 73% audience for Snow White. And that's because some people who have seen it, they enjoyed it. And it's all about who is the movie meant for. Minecraft movie is not meant for me. So I am not going to see that. What am I going to, or what did I see? I saw the Jason Statham movie, A Working Man, and it's directed by David Ayer. It's based off a Chuck Dixon novel. Sylvester Stallone co-wrote it. So it's if you look at the trailer, you kind of know what to expect from it. So that is going to be this week's movie feature. Then we're going to have 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again. Since last time 2 episodes dropped, I only covered episode 105, so we're going to do 106 and 107. And then I debated how many with this, and I don't know if I feel like I'm not going to do the whole season, but Kevin Bacon has a show out on Prime called The Bondsman, and all episodes have dropped. I'm only going to talk about the first episode, and we'll see, will I cover more next week or not. And also, this is like a last minute decision, but I managed to watch Adolescence. I think it came out on March 13th, And I saw like a clip on YouTube, the Netflix's Instagram, and I was like, "Whoa, this is kind of crazy." You see this kid, at the police, being had been arrested, and I was like, "This looks kind of intense." And then somehow, I had time, got home early, and I started watching it, and it's like, oh, Netflix miniseries. Actually, I'll talk more about this later. So we're going to talk about, it's going to be super brief because I do not want to spoil it. So normally I spoil the TV shows and all that, but this is something I feel like it needs to be seen. So more on that later. So let's get into this week's episode. We had CinemaCon happening. I think it's in Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure it's in Las Vegas. There's different things, different pieces of news that have come out. The problem is, there have been new trailers released, and it's similar to like San Diego Comic-Con, where this is getting to be the common thing now. They're trying to give people a reason to actually attend and see these different things. So some of the trailers released, or some of the trailers shown at CinemaCon, have not been widely released. You just have to see the write-ups from whoever, journalists that were there. Now, there was a new clip for Superman, and this was released wide, and when you watch it, it's like, wait, this isn't a new clip, because you see Superman, crash into the snow. He's all bloody and beat up and cut up, like his nose is busted and all this stuff like that. He calls Crypto, and I was like, this is the same thing, but then there's actually a little more. So we kind of get an extended Crypto scene, and Crypto is so darn cute in this trailer, this movie, and he's super excited to see Kal-El, and he's like jumping around and everything, and he's actually kind of like jumping on it. And Superman's like all like broken bones and stuff like that, or just all beat up, and Crypto's kind of like jumping on him, and he's like, So then he's like, take me home tonight, and it's not really a spoiler, right? If it's out there, takes him to Fortress of Solitude, and which was kind of funny. And then we see some Superman robots. And speaking of those Superman robots, so now it turns out that the trailer has revealed that Alan Tudyk has yet another DC role. So I think this is his fourth role. He is a robot number 4. So okay, we have that. But yeah, that was cool that we got to see that trailer, because like there was a trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps. I don't think this has been released yet, at least that I'm aware of. While I'm recording this, that'll come out later. But we see people have seen Julia Garner as Silver Surfer, so some more information about that. But also, as far as Fantastic Four, the director said, there's not going to be any Easter eggs or other heroes. They're trying to keep the movie grounded and just really focus on that. It's supposed to be in this like alternate, 60s Marvel, whatever, pseudo sci-fi or whatever world. My question is, what's going to happen afterwards? Because we've seen that like everyone is going to be in Avengers Doomsday, and I'm not sure if there's some sort of multiverse merging or crossover or something, which you would think that'd be more in Secret Wars. But if we're having like old school, and by old school is like the 20th Century Fox X-Men characters, and then if we have like Fantastic Four characters, which are supposed to be in this alternate 60s universe, I just wonder, are they going to somehow merge the world? Is that a way that you get X-Men? But if you merge, you can't really merge the 20th Century Fox X-Men, because then you can't recast. And, I'm assuming they're looking to recast the main characters so they can move forward. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's going to be like a Miles Morales merging the Ultimate Universe with the 616 universe, and where very minimal things have come over. So I really don't know, but that's what my gut is. There was another Thunderbolts trailer, and I don't want to spoil. I think I kind of glanced at the write-up, and I think I spoiled it for myself. But apparently the trailer reveals who the villain is, and I'll just say it's not who you may think if you know like the characters involved and so forth. But there's someone else, and yeah. So you can find out about that if you really want to. But the movie's almost, it's next month. So I think we're at the point where we don't need any more trailers and stuff like that. Let's just, I'm excited to see it. Chris Pratt, some people were asked him about like Avenger stuff. And this is like, nothing really new here, but he says that he can't say when, because, he's not going to be in Doomsday because he's filming Terminalist Season 2. I think that's the name of the show, right? But he says that he can't say when he'll appear next, but they are going to keep the promise, that Marvel put out that Star-Lord will return. So yay for Star-Lord fans, whatever. What about Kingpin? People are like, are we going to see Kingpin in Doomsday? Are we going to see Kingpin in the next Spider-Man movie? And the answer is no. So what's the name? He said that it's basically a rights thing. So the way it works is Kingpin can only, because at first I was like, wait, rights, but Kingpin, if it's Marvel and Sony a thing, Kingpin was in Hawkeye, but the rights are movie versus TV rights. That's why Kingpin can be in Daredevil Born Again and Daredevil Born Again Season 2, and that's why he was in Hawkeye. So he can be in TV shows, streaming shows. He can't be in the movies for now. So whatever, that's fine. Because also, if we're getting so much, Wilson Fisk, Kingpin, and Daredevil, we don't need to see him everywhere. Because I think sometimes it's just too much. As far as, speaking of Spider-Man, so the next Spider-Man movie is going to be Brand New Day. So what does that mean? So if are they just like, oh, that's a nice name, let's use that, or does it have anything to do with the comic arc of whatever you want to call it, called Brand New Day? If you're familiar, depending on how long you've been reading comics, this happened 2008. I think it was like 2008, 2009, 2008. So this was after One More Day. So this is when Spider-Man and Mary Jane's marriage was erased by Mephisto or whatever. They kind of went back and forth on that. And this is when Spider-Man started off, on his own again. And I feel like, because everyone got his, no one knew his identity anymore, because so many people knew, or everyone knew who Spider-Man was. Because after Civil War, his identity was known. So this was kind of how they reset things. No one knew his identity. He was single again, so he could have his girl problem, which is so stupid that Marvel doesn't think that people want to read about a married Spider-Man. Yet Ultimate Spider-Man is an amazing comic book by Jonathan Hickman and various artists. It makes sense that they're going to call this next movie Brand New Day, because as we saw in the last Spider-Man movie, Ned and MJ, they don't even know who Peter Parker is. They don't know who Spider-Man. And it looks like that would make sense with what's going to happen here. Now, the thing to keep in mind, just because they're using the title of a comic arc doesn't mean it's going to be exact. Because, like the Russos have said, even though they're doing Secret Wars or whatever, doesn't mean they're, maybe loosely inspired, if that. So we'll have to see what happens there. Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, this is where it gets kind of ridiculous. It's going to be coming out June 4th, 2027. So wasn't the last one 2023? And yeah, there was, the writer strike, actor strike, but my goodness, this the movie was supposed to come out in 2024, and now it's 2027. And yeah, but we don't want to rush it. I just don't. I could have swore there was something where they ended up having to redo the script or whatever, and because I thought originally they had the whole movie, but then it started getting a little long. So they're like, yeah, rather than because they didn't want to have a super duper long movie because theaters don't want that and whatever. But they're like, well, it looks like the story, we got enough to do another movie, and that way we don't have to cram it in or anything like that. But now they had to like redo things. So what does that even mean? And I feel like there's like some controversial thing. I don't know. But also as far as the animation, I don't want it to be rushed, and I don't want it to be overworked, because we heard supposedly some people said that they had these crazy deadlines. They're working like 80-hour weeks or whatever. But my understanding was like each world and character, whatever, they had like a separate animation team. You look at how Spider-Punk was, so different from some of the others, or you look at like Spider-Ham. So if you have different animation studios or workers, not necessarily even studios, but different animators working on different characters, then it seems like that could split the workload, where it's not like one team working on an entire movie. You have several teams working on parts of the movie, and then I guess they would just like merge things together, or however they need to do that. So I don't know. It's just I'm not sure what's going on, but fingers crossed. Someday we'll get this. Did I mention Spider-Man Brand New Days, July 31st, 2026? And as the rumor was, that's going to be in between the Avengers movies. Okay. There's also this popped up again, and I don't know if this was a new rumor or old rumor, but people are again saying Hugh Jackman maybe in Avengers Doomsday, because I don't think he was listed with all the chairs. I think so. We'll have to see about that. What about Black Phone 2? Let's move away from Marvel and comic stuff for a bit. Black Phone 2, which is like the first movie was so good, and I get why you'd want to do a sequel, but it's like, how are you going to do a sequel? Apparently, they're going to kind of do like a Freddy Krueger thing, which I don't know how I feel about that, but it's like the grabber. He's going to be kind of like a Freddy Krueger, like trying to get the kids from after his death. I don't know. That seems it feels like so weird, because it's like venturing. I mean, there is some like stuff with the phone and all that, but it feels like you're going into a different territory in the same world franchise that you've created. Now you're totally taking like a left turn. We'll see about that. I don't know. Netflix. So there's apparently a Chronicles of Narnia series that is coming to Netflix, and I'm really curious how they're going to do this. I enjoyed the books when I was a kid, and now I'm forgetting. Was there 7 books? I feel like there were 7, not 9. And I remember just reading these books when I was like in elementary, when I was a little kid. So the problem with the movies, because we only had, do we have 3 movies recently? I'm trying to remember if we ever had the 3rd one. But the problem is the movies took so long, and then the kids playing Edwin, Lucy, and who was it, Peter? I don't even remember. They're gonna get too old too quick. But if you do it like a Netflix thing, you can do more at once. And if you're going to do a season, so now the question is, how are they going to break these down? Because we've seen, in with the movies, it's like 2 hours or whatever, one book per movie, and you just have to like cruise through everything. But with a show, you can do more. So we don't necessarily have to do book 1 and season 1 and do like 8 episodes to tell the book. If there's information there, and we don't want to, scrimp on it or cut corners, then yeah, do that. But I feel like maybe maybe don't do the 1 book per season, so that way you can cover everything. Just do it justice, and don't make it take 20 years or something where all of a sudden the actors' grandkids are gonna have to step into the role. But the big thing, the reason I bring this up, so hopefully that's gonna be good. It looks like they're getting close to getting an Aslan, and I really don't know how. Actually, I don't understand. I don't know if I think I like it. So they're looking at, so Aslan's probably gonna be CG, right? Because they're not gonna get a real lion to do this. But apparently, Meryl Streep is in talks, quote unquote, in talks, to be a gender swapped Aslan. So the question now is, why? Meryl Streep is amazing, but why gender swap? And I get certain things where, especially like with the old, comics from the 60s, whatever, most of the characters, I say this all the time, they're like white dudes. There weren't a whole lot of female like heroes, female main characters. They're, mostly like supporting characters. So then as we, are into these like main characters, universe or whatever, so it makes sense, okay, we don't need everyone, not everyone is white. Not everyone is a white dude. And again, nothing against white dudes. Several of my friends are white dudes. But because there's so many different people that are consuming these comics, books, movies, or whatever, it makes sense that, well, not everyone should be white. It doesn't make sense for everyone to be white. So we should mix things up. But the problem, and this is the main thing, it's not necessarily about being racist, saying, no, you can't change this, or being sexist, you can't gender swap. But the main thing is like, why do it just to do it? And it's one thing if you're casting and you're saying, okay, open casting for whatever this role. Who is the best? Who gave the best performance? So I don't know if they did auditions for Aslan. Was it the fact that Meryl Streep, they're like, we're gonna let anyone audition, male or female? And is it that Aslan gave the best? I don't even see, you can't do that because male and female, you would have two different casting groups. But so maybe Meryl Streep gave the best overall? Is that it? Or did they go with like, it's the 21st century, let's do a female Aslan? Yeah, I don't know. So we'll see. But the thing is, there are going to be people that are angry. I'm not angry. I'll watch it. I'm just like kind of shaking my head. It's like, why do we need to do this? And again, I feel it's different because I don't know if it's because it's a voiceover, if that changes things. It shouldn't, I guess. But it just seems like they're doing it just to do it. Versus, yeah, because it's different. Like, if you have a white character and then all of a sudden, wow, we're going to get a Hispanic, a black, or whoever, because maybe someone auditioned was good. Versus, I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be people that are angry, that are, or people complaining about the woke. I don't understand the whole woke thing. Moving on, last bit of news, sad bit of news, and I debated whether starting with this or not. Val Kilmer passed, and they're saying it was pneumonia. I don't know. I haven't read anything specific, but I saw that mentioned, and it's sad. If you ever watched the Val Kilmer documentary on Prime, it's sad. He got the throat cancer and everything, and he's such a cool actor. He's done so many cool roles. And if you look at like Real Genius, Top Secret, The Doors, Top Gun, Tombstone, and he's just like Batman, Batman Forever. There's just like so much that he's done, and he's always been such a cool guy, and so it's sad, but I guess unfortunately that's life. Apparently, with his passing, there's been people like released a Schumacher cut of Batman in honor of him, because apparently, and what I didn't realize, so Schumacher passed in 2020. Is that correct? Am I totally blanking and forgetting about that? But apparently there is a Schumacher cut. So I think it was the screenwriter. He says it does exist. And it's like kind of darker, and there's more like brooding or whatever. And so I don't know, by it exists, I don't know if that means stuff was filmed or it was just a script was like that. And then, yeah. So will we ever get it? Probably not. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the way Warner Brothers is lately, like they may want to do it. But that Acme versus, who was that called? It's looking like maybe some other studio or something will be distributing that, because that was one movie that Warner Brothers cut. So, and that's like, isn't Wile E. Coyote and John Cena or something like that? So we'll have to see. And we'll have to see what else is next, because that is the news for the week. With comic books at Image Comics, we had G.I. Joe Real American Hero Beachhead #1 one shot. What? Beachhead? Why? What they're doing, they also released a G.I. Joe Real American Hero Silent Missions Edition #21. So if you've been reading, if you know about the G.I. Joe comics that started at Marvel, issue 21, the Larry Hama comics, issue 21 was the silent issue, Silent Prelude. And this was the issue that really kind of kicked things off with this. Marvel did a whole bunch of Enough Said. They did like entire month of all the comics were silent issues. And the thing that the media thing that I want to say, a lot of people are like, oh, that's so easy to do, or the writer must, they get the month off or whatever. Writer still had to write everything. And the writer and the artist have to work like super careful, because what the writer has to do, and what Marvel did with Enough Said month, is a lot of times they included either the entire script or big chunks of it, because the writer has to basically map out the entire issue for the writer. And depending on how the writer artist works, sometimes, I don't know why I'm going so into this now. Some writers are very specific about what they want. Other writers are like, okay, this is what we want. There's like the Marvel method, whatever, where the writer kind of does stuff and then the writer comes in and fills in the dialogue. There's different things. But with the Enough Said comics, I mean, you really have to, because there's no dialogue, the writer really has to work with the artist to make sure the art, the panels, the layout, everything tells the story. And yes, obviously the art always tells the story, but you have the dialogue that pushes things along. So if you have like a page of two guys talking, you could do that and you got the different dialogue going on there. But if you're doing a silent issue, what the heck are these two guys talking about? You'd have to do something that makes it obvious. So what they're doing now, Skybound, is they're doing several one-shots with different G.I. Joe or Cobra or whoever characters that are silent issues. Okay. I'm a little on the fence how I feel about that. Is like it's kind of a gimmick, but it's a callback, it's a homage, it's a kind of a cool thing. And with this Beachhead comic, it was Phil Hester working on this. So it was a fine issue. I don't love Beachhead. I don't have anything against him, but he's not my favorite Joe. So it was fine. But I do look forward to seeing more of these. So yeah, let's do this. Hyde Street #5 came out. This issue, what's her name? I forgot her first name. Some Goodbody. We saw her in that one-shot issue, and we kind of see her story, how she ended up on Hyde Street, and yeah, it's this comic is weird because we have these people who have been they're like sort of like stuck on Hyde Street, and they have to kind of trick people. They have to like collect souls of people. They have to get people to whatever their angle is, and collect them in order for them to be set free. So it's kind of dark in that way, and it's a little dreary, depressing, but it's very, very fascinating. I was a fashion school serial killer. I don't know why I couldn't say this. This was when I saw this, I was like, it sounds weird, right? The idea of that. So I was like, all right, well, I'll check this out. This is it's written by Doug Wagner. Daniel Hilliard does the art. So yeah, Doug Wagner, he does some dark stuff in a way. And we have this girl. She goes to fashion school. She gets in, and she's done some killing. I guess you could say she's a serial killer, and she's kind of like on the outskirts. She doesn't get in. She makes her own clothes and stuff like that, and she does stuff with like the human skin, and that kind of making like a type of leather out of that, and because she's different, there's your typical like kind of mean girl at the art school, and there's obviously a lot of competition and stuff like that. So it's like, man, you don't want to mess with her. But yeah, so there's some kind of not necessarily gruesome moments, but kind of. So yeah, that's an interesting comic. Rook Exodus trade paperback came out, so you should check that out. Walking Dead Deluxe came out, and I think that was it at Image that I read. There's a few other things. At Marvel, oh boy, we have all new Venom, number 5. All new Venom revealed. What really ticks me off, not necessarily the reveal. The reveal, I'm like, I'm still like I don't know. I don't think I've really like processed like what this means. But what annoys me, I think it was Monday. So I get press releases from Marvel, which is awesome. I love them. I mean, they put out so many, and I totally appreciate that. Some other publishers don't really do press releases, which is weird. It just seems like, and sometimes it's just like a cover. I mean, Marvel used to do like a lot of previews. They would do like maybe like 3-page textless previews like ahead of time, which was cool. So you can get an idea what the interior looks like. Now it's probably easier, and that probably takes some work because then you have to get textless art. Now usually what it is like, oh, here's this story arc coming up or this new series or whatever, and you only get the cover, maybe a variant cover, but you don't often really get any interiors. And it could be maybe the interiors aren't finished yet, maybe they haven't been inked or colored or who knows. So we tend to just get covers now, and then with some information and usually like a quote or sound bite from the writer, artist, or whoever. But what they did on the Monday, so last Monday, the Monday before the comic came out, Marvel put out a press release about this. And silly Tony, I'm in my classroom. I was like, oh, what's this? And I open it, and it spoiled who it was. I'm like, ah, man. So now the question is, do I spoil that now? Because it's out there. Marvel spoiled it on Monday. They spoiled it 2 days before the comic came out. And why did they do that? One, to get people excited, like, oh, I need to get to the comic shop and pick up that issue because that's kind of crazy. The annoying thing is retailers not knowing ahead of time who the reveal is may not have ordered as much. They should have known because I'm pretty sure it was listed, this is the issue with the reveal. So they could kind of, make that choice like, oh, I should order more copies because of this. But you got to be cautious because if it, they were saying it's one of these 4 people. It's either Rick Jones, Luke Cage, Joe Robertson, or Madam Mask. None of them like overly exciting. I don't think necessarily any of them are going to be like, oh man, I need to read this comic. So why did Marvel put that out there? Because most likely what would happen is Monday is when preview issues go out to outlets, for reviewers. And even though everything's under embargo, the word's going to get out there. Someone is going to spoil it, do something because people can be jerks. Or who knows what, So Marvel's like, we're going to deal with it. It's probably going to get out there, so let's just deal with it ourselves. Here's the information. It's a weird choice. I don't feel like I should spoil it, even though like it's out there. I mean, you could probably just do like a quick Google. I feel like this maybe next week or maybe some other time I'll talk about, or maybe definitely with the next issue. But I don't know. I mean, all I'll say is the person that's Venom is someone who basically has like a superhero identity. So that doesn't really say much. I mean, it says it's not Madam Mask because we've seen Venom in Madam Mask, but that could still be Luke Cage. It could still be Rick Jones Rick Jones. Oh, but that means it's probably not Joe Robertson, which probably makes sense. So it's weird that they're going to go with someone who has like other alternate identity and combine them with Venom. That could be interesting. Will we see Venom using other abilities? Combining the abilities. but it's just weird, and it feels I don't know. I don't want to like give things away, so I definitely will be talking about that, and I don't know when. I mean, like I don't know if this should be like a secret podcast topic because then not everyone can hear about it, but people who really want to hear about it can listen to it. We'll see. We'll talk about it. Definitely needs to be addressed, and I wouldn't want to necessarily like I'm gonna do another just a focus on this because we haven't really had time to fully digest it. Now that we know where they're gonna go with this, so even though we've had now 5 issues with this, now that we know who it is, it might be better to see where are they gonna go with this. I'm not 100% on board with this, but we'll see. There was a concert of champions. No, I can't read this. I mean, I don't even know what's happening here, so I didn't read that. Daredevil, Cold Day in Hell. I'm like, oh, we got a Daredevil comic. Who's this by? Charles Soule, Steve McNiven. What? And who's this skinny older dude on the cover with the walking stick? That's old man Daredevil, basically. So this is a 3-issue series, and it's a little dreary because some things happen, some bad stuff has gone on, and Matt Murdock's like older, and the world kind of sucks, and there's crazy things happen. I'll say I enjoyed this. I don't want to give anything away. You should check that out. Daredevil 13. On the hunt for Death Grip. So Death Grip is a dude that that Deadpool went up against. He ended up killing Deadpool. Deadpool was brought back to life, but him and his daughter Ellie, their healing factor was split in half because of it, whatever. But this Death Grip also took a Muramasa, the Muramasa blade, whatever how you say it, and like absorbed it, took it in, so that now he's more powerful. So because of the Muramasa, I don't even know if that's how you say it, Deadpool is going to go have some words with Wolverine, because Wolverine's supposed to be watching the sword. Why is he giving it to this other guy or letting him have it, whatever? So you can see on the cover, special appearance by Wolverine, which is kind of a joke of an appearance. Yeah, I didn't love this issue. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe one last time. It's Cullen Bunn. His Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe has always been kind of interesting. I've always enjoyed them, and because it's definitely like alternate. It's not canon at all, but things do get bloody. Deadpool does end up killing everyone, and it gets dark and dreary. So there's some weird stuff happening here, and it's like Deadpool has to kill other universes type of thing, and. So I would recommend that, especially if you've read the other ones. Helverine, I didn't read this, but looking at the cover, and because I have no idea what this character's been doing lately, because I've been really curious. I think Helverine it's a ridiculous concept. I don't even know what's going on, but I haven't been reading it, so it's not really fair for me to judge it. So that's why I haven't been vocal about saying I think this is silly. I think it's kind of funny. But what it is, it's not Wolverine, because Wolverine had those hot blades for a while, and I don't know if that was ever really explained, and maybe I just missed it. You look at that, it's like, no, that's not Wolverine. Look at the claws. This is Daken. What has Daken been doing? So is this actually canon? I thought there's like some weird alternate, like let's do Wolverine is whatever possessed, or some weird thing. But maybe something happened now. Daken is. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on with Immortal Thor. Not reading that. Ironheart Bad Chemistry. Ugh, I did not like this comic. I'm sorry to say that. I just did not like it. Ironheart now, she goes up against this one villain, and I guess, I don't know if we've seen this villain before. Maybe I just missed it. But there's like this history, and it's just like this attitude, and it's kind of like the young, hip, angry attitude, which is just like annoying. And this girl
her mom died young. She was in foster care, and what it turned out is she didn't even know, or her dad didn't even know she existed, because the mom thought that the dad was too busy, and so whatever, they broke up, and so he never knew that he had a daughter. And then the girl's uncle, who's like a loser, he went to jail because the girl's dad kind of turned him in, type of thing, or whatever. So he makes up all this lies and make her even more angry. It's just, and then she's got these powers and doing some stuff, and it's just, ugh. And yeah, I just did not like, and I was surprised I made it to the end, that I didn't just stop reading, because I was just like, what? No. Marvel Rivals, I don't know anything about this. Number one, I maybe I should check it out to see what could this comic be. I don't know. Who does the art in this? Luca Claretti? Paul Allure does the writing. I like his writing. Maybe I'll check it out sometime, see what the heck's going on. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur 10th Anniversary Special. I didn't read this. I like Moon Girl. There's some fun comics, and Natasha Bustos' art I really dig it. It's like perfect for this series. It's so appealing for like this. It's not necessarily a kiddie book, but she's a little girl, and so it looks like her 10th birthday. I should check this out some point. I'm sure it'll be fun. Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu. Man, look at that cover. 8-Ball, what are you doing? What, are you betraying Moon Knight? And as I'm reading this, I was like, did I forget something? Did this happen at the end of the last issue? Did he turn on them? Because he's like, I don't have anywhere else to go, type of thing. So he's with the Midnight Mission, and helping them when Moon Knight was gone. And but yeah, it's just an interesting issue. And so there's basically 8-Ball in the pool party. There's he forms this new team. So that was good. That's all I want to say. And I will say we have an appearance by what's her name, Natalia, the Unstoppable Wasp. So that was cool. I like her too. Miles Morales, Spider-Man 32. Blah. Oh man, Ares is so Ares, God of War, wants Spider-Man dead, wants Miles Morales dead. And I don't know if it's anything personal against him or just because he's the avatar of a Nazi now. Yeah, so he gets this other guy. And so Ares, spoiler, he's the one that gave Madame Gao some powers. She's so ridiculous. But it's just, I did not like it. Psylocke, issue 6. This was okay. I didn't really like it. And then it's just some attitude going on, and yeah, so I don't know. Spider-Boy 18. I was a little confused with this because as I'm reading and I'm kind of trying to go faster, and then I was like, wait, when is this happening? Because there's a part where at the Feast Foundation, or whatever place where Bailey and his mom is staying, there's some Mr. Negative's men are there, and she's like, go to May's nephew, and go to May's place because her nephew knows Spider-Man. But it's like, wait, his mom knows that he's Spider-Boy. So what does that mean? I was a little confused by that. And then as I'm reading it, I was just like, I don't really care what's going on here. I hate to say it, but Ultimate X-Men Not 14. Someday I'm going to go read those. West Coast Avengers. This was kind of annoying because, you have the Avengers, they're like, oh, sort of these new West Coast Avengers, they have Ultron on their team, so we have to put a stop to him because you can't do that. So Ultron must have corrupted, Tony Stark and War Machine and everyone else like that. So we're all high and mighty, and we're gonna go tell them that they're wrong and they need to turn him over and stuff like that. But it's like, why not send out an email hey, can we talk about this? What's going on? And said they go there and start getting not necessarily high and mighty, but kind of throwing their weight around. And it's just I find it, I get why they do it so they could set up the fight, but I just find it this condescending and annoying. So, but things kind of get there's sort of twists or things don't quite work out so nicely. So yeah.
Then there's X-Men number 14. This was another kind of weird. It's Jed McKay. Ryan Stegman is doing the art, but it's kind of weird. So there's this girl in town who came to the X-Men before, or they brought her, where she's like, is she a mutant? But then she's like, no, she's not a mutant, but then she's missing. So the X-Men, they agree, the sheriff comes and talks to Cyclops, like, hey, can you help us out? Even though things are a little shaky between the X-Men and the town. So they're trying to find her. They can't find her, but then someone is like starting to attack them, because like Quentin Quire is like out in the Marauder, like, flying around. And he gets attacked, and things don't go well, and there's like all this stuff happening, and so it was, I don't know, it was just it seemed a little weird, like something was just off with it. I don't know, but we'll see where it's going to go. Over at DC, we had Absolute Superman number 6. We basically we're seeing how Kal-El, when he arrived at Earth. So it's kind of backing up from like the first few issues, and it's interesting. We see him, when he lands in Smallville. So like the question is, I don't know if it was mentioned before. Is there Ma and Pa? Like, what happened? What was the reaction, and all, so forth. So we get more information about that. So it's interesting that it's the direction is different but familiar, and that's what I like, that it's not just a carbon copy of what we've seen countless times. So there's definitely some different stuff. I don't know, I mean, the big difference is like Lois Lane and her role in this. So that's what I'm finding interesting, is like, where is that going to go, and so forth. So some interesting things here. Absolute Green Lantern number 1. This is it's the same thing. There's some familiar elements, but some things just like totally different. So I don't know what this means, because we do have Hal Jordan, we do have Jon Stewart. There's someone else in there. I don't know if they mentioned her name, who she's supposed to be, but some stuff goes down that's like really shaking things up. And there's mention of Abin Sur, but something happened to Hal Jordan, and it's just like, what's going on? So Al Ewing did the writing, and it was as I think it's Janoy Lindsay did the art. I don't remember. Yeah, I'm. Part of me is like, I don't want another Absolute book. I don't want to have to read it, and that's selfish. But yeah, I'm curious to see where this is going to go. JSA number 6. Dang, man, things get dark and dreary. Like all this bad stuff starts happening. Like some characters doing like things that they shouldn't be doing. Other characters like, wait, did that person just die? And then I'm starting to think, it's like, oh, this must be like a weird dream or something like that. But then it's like, wait, maybe it's not. So yeah, I don't know. Justice League and Atom Project. I'm not reading that. I feel like I don't know if I should be, because what issue is this? And I have no idea what this is even about. Secret 6 number 2. I didn't like the first issue. I shouldn't. I started reading this, and I'm like, wait, what is going on? And then, of course, because I wasn't reading, I started just like skimming and really don't know what's going on. Yeah. So I don't know if I should just not try with the third issue, or if I should just go back and try to read this issue. Like maybe I didn't give it a fair shake, but I wasn't crazy about the first issue. Birds of Prey. This was good. So we got Kelly Thompson and Sammy Basri. Just like the art is just so good, and the writing, and there's these different things going on. There's, because of different things happening, Barbara's sending like members on different missions type of thing. So it's really cool to see the different things and how things are laid out, and so I enjoyed that. Batgirl number 6. I don't know. It's we're at the 6th issue, and we still got Cassandra and Lady Shiva, but yeah, I don't know. And so crazy things kind of happen at the end of this. We'll have to see what that means, because yeah, it can't be what we think it is. And that's all I read. There's Resurrection Man
Two-Face, Poison Ivy, and I think Teen Titans Go came out. So that is it. That is going to be comics. I feel like I kind of went a little quicker, but let's keep things moving, right? That's going to be comics for the week. Okay, Daredevil Born Again. We got 2 episodes this week because last week we had 2, and I only did 1 last week. So last week's second episode, Season 1, Episode 6, Excessive Force. So let's just get into it. I guess what I say overall, I debate with all my TV coverage. Should I be so in depth, or should I just do like a briefer? Like, okay, this happened, this was cool. What does this mean? I debate back and forth because I feel like in the beginning, I shouldn't be talking about this now necessarily, but I don't know if I'm going too in-depth with this, because if you're watching it, you don't need all this, but I'm kind of also looking at it, if you're not watching but are curious, or if you missed an episode or whatever, or I don't know. But so I think I'm going to try to start scaling back. It's just, that's a struggle for me. It's silly, because it makes, whatever. Okay, so this episode started off with like there's a BB report about like graffiti artists, and then we also see like vigilantes helping. One of the clips, there's like a video of what swordsman, what's his name, Jack, I think his name's Jack from Hawkeye. Then we see shots of like workers by subway, trainers. There's like some train. Then there's a guy by the docks by the rocks or something like that. He finds a body dumped. I'm assuming it's by Muse, right? And it's like he didn't even try hiding the body. It's just like out there. Like it's in. There's a bunch of stones and some weeds and stuff like that, but it's not like he tried burying it or doing anything. It's just like bloop, there you go. Then there's like a city worker. He's in one of those like crane things that get like, there's a little, I don't know what they're called. I'm totally blanking, but it's like a basket and it just elevates you. It's kind of like the phone company uses sometimes or whatever. But he's trying to clean some graffiti by Muse, and it's this big like kind of bull silhouette with like a dollar bill painted on it, and then it says like "kiss ass." And like in the front, there's a kiss in the front, ass in the back, and then there's like a silhouette of Fisk by his butt, and I think there was even like a little heart by the butt because he's supposed to be kissing, and there's a kind of like a crown, and it says a king above that. So yeah, I'm sure Fisk didn't like that one, but we didn't get to see his reaction to it. Matt, he's like reading Bible passages, like some Bible passage like that, and he's holding a memorial card for Foggy. There's like Braille at the bottom. It's something like passage about pursuing justice and stuff like that. We see some flashbacks to like Foggy's final night, from the first episode. Then Matt at the bank from last episode, which is weird, and then with the guy in the red hood pointing a shotgun at his forehead, and Matt like not flinching or anything like that. There's some stuff about Hector in jail, and then when he's at the diner with Fisk, and then like attacking the red dude, the red masked guy at the bank. Then he thinks back to having like a gun pointed at his head when he was at that witness. What is his name? Nick, the guy that was on the subway that Hector went to try to save, and when he went to his apartment and he got into the fight. And he thinks about going after Bullseye and then letting him fall off the roof and all stuff. And he's like, "Amen." And then he gives the card a little kiss. Heather comes in and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, just checking in." And she's like, "Oh, do you still pray or something like that?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "A few times over the years, I've left it or something like that, but I always end up coming back to it." And then there's like some weird like edits scene. It's just like going like boom, boom, because the scenes change again. And it feels just like really weird, like kind of abrupt. And there's times I was like, did I accidentally hit the like fast forward 10 seconds button or something like that, because it's all of a sudden it just changes. So Sheila goes over like Fisk's appearance schedule, and he's like, "Oh, I'm tired of these black tie events and stuff like that." Then she tells him that he has an unscheduled visitor in his office. So it turns out it's Luca, the mobster dude that like owes money or whatever because he broke some rules. And he's like, "What are you doing here?" And Luca's like, "Is that any way to greet an old friend?" And he tells Sheila he's got this. So basically, like leave so they can talk alone.
Then it cuts back abruptly to Matt and Heather, and she asks if he's all right, and she brings up being a hostage at the bank, and he was a victim of a crime. And he's like, "Oh, it's fine." He knew that he was going to be okay. He really can't explain it. Then it cuts back to Fisk. He tells Luca that he has 5 minutes. And, he asks if this is about the 1.8 million. Luca comments, he looked like all the books in his office. He's like, you probably haven't even read any of them. It's, it's all for show. It might as well be Halloween around here or something like that. And Fisk is like, you have 4 minutes, 30 seconds. And then it cuts back to Heather and Matt. She says she's running late. She's meeting with her editor because he's already asking about her next book. Matt asks if she needs help, like spitballing ideas, or if she does, she knows where to find him. And she's like, oh, it's interesting you should ask, because, she's like, I think I mentioned it, the premise is vigilantes, why we revere the mask. And he's like, I get it. Cool. Yeah, interesting. Then Fisk tells Luca that he needs to give Victor the 1.8. He'll give him until the end of the week. And Luca's like, respectfully, Mr. Mayor, you can shove that 1.8 up your ass. And then there's a pause, because Fisk is trying to keep everything in control. And he's like, make it 2.8. And he takes this, he has this like apple pin on his suit jacket next to like a flag. And he puts it on Luca. I don't know what the apple, New York apple, Big Apple. He puts it on Luca. He says 1.8 to Victor and the balance to him, of course. Then Heather, she says she thinks it's a fascinating question. Does the mask hide them and give them permission to do things that are legally and socially taboo, like violence? Does the mask allow us to be our true selves, or does it strip away our identity and allow us to act like animals? And then a weird cut to Fisk standing in front of Luca while Heather's voice continues. They do this a couple of times too, where in some cases, like later, there's a scene where the other scene is just kind of like sitting there, not saying anything, while the other scene is like talking. So this is clearly directed by a different person. It's like, I'm not sure what's going on here, unless it has to do with the overhaul and the re-editing and maybe salvaging some parts. I don't know. Or maybe it's just artistic license, right? Heather's voice continues. Matt says, he doesn't know, maybe both. And she's like, maybe, right? She's like, you have experience with the people, don't you? And Matt's like, with animals? And she's like, vigilantes. You've represented a few, right? And he's like, ooh. He's like, what, are you researching me now? And then Luca tells Fisk, he's like, you're out of the game, old man. It's like, stay out of it. And then Heather says she was thinking maybe Matt could set her up with someone like, she's like, I don't know, Frank Castle. And Matt laughs. He's like, the Punisher? He's like, you want to interview the Punisher? And she's like, bad idea? He's like, no, it's like, that's a solid idea. Fisk tells Luca that he's got until the end of the week. His time is up. And Luca looks at him. He's like, see ya, Fisk. Give your wife my regards. And he's like, please show him out. Heather asks, she's like, how about Daredevil? You've worked with him, right? And then her phone buzzes. It's her Uber. And she says that, she's not going to stalk his clients, but, maybe they can talk about it after. And he's like, sure. Then we get the opening credits. So it's like 9 minutes in, whatever. Then later, Sheila tells Fisk it's urgent. John Santini from the sanitation is there. Which, was that? I don't know if I got that name right or if that's just what's in my head. Santini Sanitation. My name is Santini. I was going to try to come up with something else similar. So he's there. He's like, oh, it's Johnny. He's like, it's a pleasure to meet you. He's like, I've been in sanitation for 35 years. And he wants Fisk to know that he voted for him, whatever. Sheila nudges like, Johnny, what like basically what's the point of your visit type of thing. He mentions a mural. He's like, I got bad news and worse news, Mr. Mayor. He's like, turns out it's going to be a lot tougher to get the murals down than we thought. Why is that? And Johnny's like, well, look, I made a really good run at that wall. I got the biggest power washer because I didn't want to ruin the facade. It didn't do squat. So I made a switch and blah, blah, blah. It's like that. And Fisk is like, cut to the point. And he's like, see, the mural, it's made with an epoxy. So I had to do its chemical analysis. Then I had to get the special solvent. And Sheila's like, Johnny, just tell him what you told me, the worst news. And he's like, right, it's blood. The mural, it's made out of human blood. And Fisk looks at Sheila, and he thinks, and he tells her to get Gallo in there now. So the police commissioner, dude. All right, that's Gallo. Matt's in the office talking with Kristen. She mentions she says something about poison counsel or something like that. They talk about another firm
this tax firm. And so I'm not really sure what that was about. Then she's like, why is that Ayala girl here? So Kirsten lets her into the conference room. She says that she was hoping to talk to Mr. Murdoch. So Kirsten like leaves. And he's like, 11:17 a.m. He's like, what is that? Third period? Fourth? History? Biology? And Angela's like, English, actually. And he's like, oh. And she's like, I'm getting a 99. 104 if you factor in a curve. So then she's like, he was onto something, Matt. And and it's weird because she calls him Matt sometimes, and she calls him Mr. Murdoch sometimes. So I think she calls him Matt this time. She's like, he was investigating something. And Matt's like thinking back to Hector saying, someone's got to do something to protect them. You know, people are going missing. No one seems to care. And she's like, I don't know for sure, but I think it has something to do with all those people going missing, which is why they showed that clip. She's like, all those kidnappings, you know, he started tracking them. And Matt's like, Angela, he's like, I know you're upset and you have every right to be, but this isn't safe. And she's like, don't tell me how to be, Mr. Murdoch. And he's like, mm-hmm. She's like, not now. Don't pull that therapy talk that I'm processing or trying to control or whatever. So, or that I should be in school because that's what Hector would have wanted. She's like, this is what he would have wanted. Someone finishing his work. Someone actually doing something for once. And my question is, at this point, I'm like, you know, where's the pendant? Is she going to put on a pendant? She's super short. She's like 4'10" or something. I don't know. She's really, really short. Doesn't matter. But I just think if you have someone that is shorter like that and all of a sudden they put on a costume, it's like, that kind of narrows things down. But it's like, and the other question, since I'm not a white tiger expert, if the powers come from this medallion, this pendant, whatever, can anyone just put it on? Because, like, you know, what happens if Matt Murdock put it on? You know, would with his enhanced senses, would it just like amp things up even further? Could Angela put it on and then she gets, you know, whatever powers? So Matt sighs. He's like, therapy talk? He's like, I was doing that. And she's like, straight up. And she kind of chuckles. She's like, I hate that poop. And Matt's like, yeah, sure. He's like, I kind of hate it too. And Angela's like, all those kidnappings were all close to the old Q line, the one they shut down, track 61. And Matt's like, look, Angela, it's like, I'm just a lawyer, all right? I tried to help your uncle in court, but something like this, that's for the police. And she's like, the police killed my uncle. She's like, I'm not going to them. And Matt's like, all right, fair enough. But what do you want me to do about it? And she's like, how about literally anything, Mr. Murdoch? Attorney at law, big fancy office, here to help the little guy, right? Or only on your terms, because when the little guy puts something for real in your hands, you'll be like, nah, it's fine. That's cool. My bad for thinking you cared. And then she gets up to leave. So here's the annoying thing is, so yeah, okay, let's think about that. Maybe they got a big fancy office and all that. Who pays for that office? Did he charge Hector for anything? No, he didn't. I don't think he did. And he took the other guy pro bono. So they're helping the little guy who can't necessarily pay for anything, yet they have to pay. That's why he's at the bank and get involved in bank robberies. So she gets up to leave, and Matt's like, and plus the fact that, okay, he's a lawyer, not enforcer or anything like that as far as she knows, and he's blind as far as she knows. That's it. So what is he supposed to do? What does she think he can do? So he's like, it's not that simple, Angela. It's not how things work. And she's like, you know what? My uncle, 2 days before he got shot, you know what he told me? He told me, don't rely on anyone to do what you can do for yourself. Damn, he was right. She walks out. And it's like, okay, that sounds like it's going to lead to trouble. Then we see Commissioner Gallo, Detective Angie, and some others are in Fisk's office. Gallo talks to him about the graffiti artist, that he mixes blood with the paint and then applies epoxy on top, so it makes the murals essentially impervious, which I guess that's a smart thing. I don't know. Fisk asks how many murals are there, and there's 12 confirmed with 18 known IDs. They've gathered at least 5 unique DNA profiles for each mural. And so at 5 profiles per mural, they estimated that at least 60 victims, which is crazy. And it's difficult to project just yet. Sheila mentions missing reports are up, but this can't account for all of them. And Angie says that they also know that he somehow managed to avoid detection by any of the city's surveillance footage. Fisk starts like kind of tuning them out, which is weird. He's staring at the TV and there's images like the different murals. It's not the TV. What they're using the TV is like a computer screen, like modern. This is like their data. So you can see like some thumbnails on the side of other murals, but like the image of him as like the main image, like where there's kind of like 2 kingpins and whatever, like they're 2 Fisks.
and we can't really hear anything except a loud like ticking, and the closed captioning is still going. Like every once in a while you see what they're saying. Gallo says, someone else could die, not knowing that there's a serial killer. Then Fisk starts randomly like laughing. And then once he stops, he's like, sound alarm, and he could lay low for a while. He could wait us out, then he'll come back harder and stronger. No, not a single word leaves this room. And Gallo like mutters something. He's like, this is no way to run a GD railroad? A railroad? What the heck does that mean? And Fisk is like, when the sanitation department figures out there's a serial killer before the NYPD does, maybe it's time to switch up the protocols. So that's a dig against Gallo, saying that the sanitation found out there's a serial killer and the police had no idea. So then we see a couple drunk girls. They go up to this graffiti guy in an alley. They're so stupid. They're like, are you Muse? And one's like, is it cool if we take a picture of you? And so he has like a knit cap on and he has his back to them so you can't see him. One's like, not a selfie, just like artist, his work, He turns around and it's Muse. He's got like the white mask, whatever, with the blood like kind of dripping from the eyes. And he like lunges at them. They scream and the scene changes because that's cut. Fisk, he's putting on a dress suit. Vanessa comes in and he tells her that Luca came to see him and was very rude. She's like, to the mayor's office? She's like, that's bold. And Fisk says that they, as they imagine, and Luca has no intention of paying his debt, so he added $1 million tax to his bill. And she says, "Oh, Victor will like that." And if Luca ever pays up, Fisk says that he doesn't need Victor to like it; he needs him to want it. Then he mentions politics, different kind of problem solving. Most of this is new to him, but some things remain unchanged. Find out what a person wants and either withhold it or provide it, and then they'll do anything. And she's like, well, not tonight. So she sits next to him. She's like, you're asking New York's elite for money. So he has to go to one of his like fundraiser scheduled things or whatever. At the event, Fisk is talking to people. Sheila's like kind of guiding him around to different people. We hear Vanessa's continued words from before when he was getting dressed. And she's like, sure, they want influence, but they don't need it. And this lady talks to him about like the port project being his first endeavor. And he's like, it's not a first endeavor, or it's not just a first endeavor. It's an engine of industry. And Vanessa's like, by simply being there and asking them for money, you're giving them all they care about, reassurance of their supremacy. So basically like that he's asking them for money, so it's making them feel important. Then we see Fisk talking to Jack. I think his name is Jack, the swords guy from Hawkeye, the funny guy. And he mentions Fisk's obsession with vigilantes. And then the lady's going on about the port. She's like, I want to be honest. She's like, you've had many dealings in the port. The port expansion project is a self-serving con. You're using taxpayer dollars to further enrich yourself. And his student next to her is like, and your colleagues, so to speak. And Fisk just smiles. He's like, I always put the city before myself. And if you're suggesting anything different, well, that's just nonsense. And the lady's like, you may have a seat at the table right now for a couple years anyways, but the people in this room still decide who gets to eat. I suggest you don't lose sight of that. So it's like, and she's like, tell your wife the flowers were exquisite tonight, if you would. And she walks away. And it cuts back to like when he was talking to Jack. He says something about one call to the right person and it's bye-bye mansion. He says something about like a garrote to the neck. And Fisk's like, is that a threat? And Jack's like, no, it's a warning. Back at Fisk's from before, Vanessa asks him or helps him to put on his jacket, and as he puts it on, it like rips under his arm, and he's like, "It seems my suits aren't fitting like they were," and that's because he's chowing down on food while making Adam watch from his cell. Because every time he eats with Vanessa, it's like little dainty things. Vanessa's like, "Oh, guess we'll have to get you a new wardrobe then." Matt's at the office. He's listening to his recording on his laptop. Cherry comes in with a drink for him, and Pat's like, He's like, what's up? And Cherry sits, he sighs, he hesitates. He's like, you're going to hear about it anyways, but I'd rather you hear it from me. And Matt's like, okay. And Cherry's like, I got a call from my guy at the precinct. He said there's a serial killer out there. They're going through a DEFCON scenario. Matt's like, how many victims? And there's like nothing. He's like, Cherry? He's like, what? How many? Cherry's like, upwards of 60, so they say. They've identified a suspect, though. And Matt's like, who is it? He's like, graffiti artist, painting walls all around town, goes by the name Muse. Apparently, and Matt's like, apparently what? Cherry's like, he paints with his victim's blood. Matt's like, whew. And Cherry's like, Matt, you got to be straight with me, buddy. You got to let this one go. Just let the police do their jobs. Matt's just like silent, and then Cherry leaves. At the shindig, Fisk tells Vanessa that these people are like parasites. He's like, can't they see how important this project is? Then Daniel and Buck come up to him. Daniel says that there's something that he needs to see. So Fisk asks Vanessa, to make apologies for him because he has to, take care of something. Buck and Daniel, which is kind of silly, they show him the new painting, like in the car. They're looking at a tablet. It's like you could have done that anywhere. And so there's like lots of pictures. There's like Statue of Liberty in white, bloody eyes, and like blood in the center of the Statue of Liberty. And I don't know if it was holding up a microphone or something like that. Handcuffs are on the other hand. And you can see there's like the two dead girls in the alley. They're like at the bottom, like against a wall. And it looks like their eyes might be gouged out. And Buck says that the man's obviously mocking the police. And Fisk says that they can use this. There's a BB report. She asks the lady if she feels safe in the street. The lady says she ain't supposed to say anything, but she hears 2 girls have gone missing. Another guy says that he heard that there's 1 girl or a couple girls found dead, but they drained out their blood. And then this lady says that they really need someone out there to be out there like to protect them. In Fisk's office, Gallo says that they've got a serial killer on the loose, and he's like, and you cut the forces overtime, and now he has to report to Fisk on the Muse case. And Fisk is like, well, I care about the city. And Gallo's like, then put more cops on the street. He's like, that's exactly why I asked you here. I intend to. He takes out like a big like clip of like pages. He's like, a task force handpicked by me. And of course, Powell's at the top of the stack. Powell's like such a dork. Gallo's like, this is every bad apple in the barrel. And Fisk is like, it appears your officers have a subculture amongst them. People like to use the word gang. I prefer motivated individuals. And due to their extreme nature of these crimes, this task force will have special powers and privileges, like overtime. And he's like, and no body cameras, that sort of thing. And Gal's like, and who the hell is going to oversee this? And King Fisk is like I said, I care about the city. So then at like a motor pool or something like that, Fisk walks in. I think Buck might have been with him. And, Powell's there, some other people. This city is in a crisis. A serial killer is roaming our streets. He needs to be stopped. And Powell's like, okay, but why us? Because some of you're victims of bad luck. Others, you've been a little overzealous. But all of you, throughout your careers, have shown initiatives. And then he starts listing like officers' names, their details, like where they're from. He talks about this guy Cole. He's like from Chicago. He made detective 3 years. Yet in New York, he lost it all. He asked them to tell what happened on January 14th. And Cole says he was responding to a call, possible drug activity in the park. Upon his arrival, he saw a guy hand an 11-year-old some oxy. The guy denied everything, so he encouraged him to tell the truth. Captain didn't see it that way. So there's a lot of poop bags in the world, sir. Now there's a lot less of them. And Fisk is like, that's right. Sometimes when you need to get the job done, it requires a little, creative thinking. I assume Gallows told you that we have a serial killer in our midst. I want to be clear. I brought you here because of your skills, because of your ability to get results. Consider yourself founding members of my anti-vigilante task force. And he takes like a vest or something from like Buck, tosses it to Powell. The killer, Muse, he wears a mask. Well, that's because he's afraid. I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to show your faces because you are New York's finest and this city is yours and you're not going to let some masked criminal take it away from you. And they're all like, yeah. Powell and Cole, they kind of like nod at each other like, okay. Then we see like subway tunnels. Angela's exploring at night with her phone light and there's like metal rattling and stuff like this. Like, what are you doing, girl?
Matt's at his apartment listening to pages again on his laptop. There's an automated voice from his phone announces a call from the Ayala home. He answers as Soledad. She says that Angela still hasn't come home. That's not like her. Has she been in touch with him? Because she said that she was going to see him, and Soledad's worried because she's never done this before, and she didn't know who else to call. Matt like kind of cuts her off. He's like, "It's okay." He's like, "Just stay, where you are." And he stands up and he calls 911, and they're like, "How can we direct your call or whatever?" But then he just like fudge it, and he drops like the Daredevil horn piece, and it lands like on the Foggy Memorial card. Goes to his secret supply closet. He swings out over City on like the grappling hook, the billy clubs. Then we see Muse is carrying Angela. So he found her, knocked her out or something like that. He goes to his hidden lair, lays her on a table, unzips her jacket. He injects her with like a needle of something. Then he thrusts like a big needle pump like into her chest. Then we see Fisk walking down some stairs to Adam's prison, and he has like an axe in his hand. "I can imagine that Vanessa would like for me to let you go." And Adam's like, thank you. Fisk unlocks opens the cell door. "But that's a difficult thing for me to do. You understand that, right? How we are, locked together, our experience, shared, and when I was younger, smaller, I went up against men 3 times my size. Men who knew how to use their hands. And they did so often, and I learned that a simple tool, it can be a great equalizer." And he like tosses the axe in the cell. Muse starts pumping out Angela's blood. It's like, holy crap. Then there's like this rattling, like is it from the train? And he looks and sees like one go by, and then he keeps kind of looking, and then it's like down the track, something's coming. Someone is running at him. It's Daredevil. Shoots a grappling hook, whoosh, goes right next to Muse's head, like into the wall, and then Daredevil whoosh comes like rushing at him like on the grappling line. And then he connects with a punch, sends him like Muse flying back, kicks him, punches him, slams him down, punches him, does a kick flip, and Muse you can see is in pain. And Matt's breath like breathing heavily, and then he sees Angela laying on like this table. So at the cell thing, whatever, Adam grabs the axe, yells, and charges at Fisk, and he just like punches him and like swats him back. Muse is struggling to get up. He grabs a blade. He tries fighting, but he just gets a few more punches. He hits Daredevil, but the blade just like scrapes across his helmet or something like that. There's more fighting, and then you can hear like Angela's heartbeat, like because Matt can hear it. Adam struggles to get up. He tries swinging the axe again, but Fisk swats it aside, and he headbutts Adam. Daredevil headbutts too, and kick, punch, and he goes to Angela to turn off like the pump. Then Muse gets up. He hits Daredevil from behind. He manages to give Daredevil like a bloody mouth. I don't know how he hit him with something. He raises a blade to thrust into Angela, but then Daredevil shoots him with the grapple hook, whatever. He gets in some more hits, and then he seems like he just lets Muse go. He slams him with his billy club a couple times, and then there's some more back and forth. Then Daredevil lets out a big yell. He headbutts him, picks him up, and slams him down. So Fisk, Kingpin, also picks up Adam, slams him down. So there's a lot of things like it's almost like mirror, like same exact things happening. Both deliver like punches to the head. Adam gets slammed as like a brick pillar. Fisk like roars. Daredevil, he wraps his like grapple line around Muse's neck and like kind of tightens it. Then he starts pulling like to hang him. He's like pulling that, and Muse is like going up, and he's like screaming. He's like starts twitching. Daredevil hears Angela's feeble heartbeat, so he lets go to Billy Club. Muse like falls, and tumbles a little bit, and then so Daredevil goes to Angela, starts like CPR. We hear Matt saying like a prayer. I think it was from before. Fisk drags Adam back to his cell. I think he's dragging him by his leg, just like kind of flings him in there. Daredevil continues doing CPR. Then swoosh, he slams her chest, and right when the end of the flashback prayer, he's like, "Amen." Angela gasps, and then she like looks around. Fisk sits on a cot with like he's got bloody hands. Adam's just laying on the ground, and then Daredevil looks. He noticed Muse is gone. Of course, Angela's like, "Daredevil," and he's like, "Yeah, it's okay. I'm here." And that's the end of episode 4. Then season 1, episode 7, art for art's sake. So in the mayor's office, Fisk looks out the window and he talks to Daniel and Buck. He asks them like what they see, and he says, he sees fear, a city churning to a stop, blah, blah, blah. He promised the city he'd protect them from this freak, and they have nothing. And Daniel says that that's not entirely true. A girl named Angela Del Toro was dropped off at Presbyterian late last night. Says that she actually escaped from Muse. She's still alive. And Daniel's like, yeah, she lost a lot of blood, like 2,500 milliliters. But she was able to point the cops towards Muse's hideout. But how did she escape? And Buck says the girl claims she was rescued by the vigilante known as Daredevil. So he's back. And Buck's like, we don't know that for sure. He's like, get out. And Fisk breathes deeply. He's back. So my question, because I don't remember things now, apparently, I'm trying to remember what happened in season 3. I know I watched season 3 because I remember it ended with Bullseye, but I'm trying to remember. I should go back and watch Netflix Daredevil again, but from their conversation at the diner, does he know Matt Murdock is Daredevil? Because he hates Daredevil, but he's okay with Matt Murdock. And there's some times when he's talking to him, he knows, right? I think he knows. Because then now that he's back, it almost sounds like he does know. Because if he's back, then he can just go, send people to his law office. Angela's still in the hospital. She's dreaming of Muse and a fight. And you hear it's okay, I'm here. That's what Matt said. So then we see Matt showers, blood washes off him. He hears the door open, and Heather walks in, joins him in the shower, and she sees this huge bruise on his back, and then she's like, Matt, she's concerned, and then he starts kissing her. I guess I don't know if because he really wanted to kiss her, he's just trying to change the subject. Later, she says that he was gone when she got there, and he said it was a case, it's a bear. And she's like, well, you left your briefcase here. And she's like, and you didn't get those bruises at work. And he's like, I went for a walk. And, I'm having trouble sleeping, okay? And he says, sorry. He's like, he knows that she worries. He's like, I do occasionally bump into things. It's part of my reality. And she's like, well, then why lie about going for a walk? And he's like, because it's embarrassing. And she's like, no, what's going on? He's checked out a large portion of the time. He puts himself in dangerous situations like at the bank. But it's okay, the bank, he didn't put himself in it. He did. She doesn't know that. He just happened to be there. He's beat up. She's like, is this some sort of self-harm? And he chuckles and he's like, no. He says that, he's just dealing with some things and obviously not very well. And she's like, some things? And he's like, look, Heather. He's like, you realize I used to have this whole other life and it was a lot different to this. And she's like, at your old firm with your old friends, Foggy and Karen? And Matt sighs. He's like, kinda? He's like, and sometimes this all feels like, he sighs, he's like, fake? And she's like, fake? And he's like, not you. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I'm sorry to do this, but you've been tamping down trauma for so long, you can't even see when it's bubbling up inside you and threatens to ruin everything good you have. He's like, I know. She's like, everything good we have. He's like, yep. And I'm trying really hard to fight it. She's like, it's not a fight. It's a process. He's like, got it. Understood. Thank you, Dr. Glenn. And she's like, oh, and she, not that hard. She hits him in the shoulder. She's like, don't joke your way out of this. And he laughs and he apologizes. And she's like, I love you, Matt. He's like, I love you too. At the firm, Cherry's waiting for him. And he's like, what the hell's wrong with you? He's like, you thought I wouldn't find out? It's like, you gave your word. Then you pulled his poop. He's like, keep your voice down, please. Let's talk in a conference room. Kirsten comes up asking if she can chat with him a minute. And he asks to give him a minute to talk to Cherry about another case. And Cherry, inside, he's like, I told you to stay out of it. And Matt's like, what am I supposed to do? The cops were messing around and getting nowhere. Cherry's like, do you want a medal? And Matt's like, he's a serial killer, Cherry. This is different. 60 dead. Would have been one more if Daredevil hadn't shown up. And he's still out there. So he says that he needs him to reach out to his contacts, find out exactly where. And Cherry's like, no. And he's like, what? So you think I'm going to enable you with this poop? And Matt's like, after last night, he's going to go into survival mode because he knows he's got limited time. If I can figure out his pattern, I can figure out where he's going to strike next. She's like, do me a favor, call your contacts. He's like, no. He's like, you want to blow up your life again? You go ahead. but you're on your own. Matt like chuckles. He's like, there's a time when you were on the force, moments like this, you called me. And Cherry just like walks out of the conference room. Fisk's staring out the window. He kind of looks like Chandler in Friends when he was like sad, moping around. He's like, it was just a year ago, and he vanished. Buck's like, well, why now? It's not like Muse is the first serial killer the city's ever seen. We're talking about a man who dresses in a double costume. I don't know why. And he's like, but if he's back, is he going after Muse? That's not the worst thing in the world, is it? He's like, I mean, for the sake of the city. And he's like, for the sake of the city? And he like scoffs. It's like, ha! It's like, we're talking about a man who single-handedly destroyed 10 years of business infrastructure. You understand what I'm saying? And he's like, yes, sir. He like grunts. 10 years I built that operation. It was totally fail-proof. Fail-proof until he had me unjustly arrested. He took down my entire business, one that made hard-working people who believed in themselves and my enterprise richer than they ever dreamed of. An entire network of blue-collar millionaires, from distributors overseas to the port workers here. Those people, they had grit. He went on a rampage. He tracked down all my workers, custom facilitators, all of them, savagely beating them. Yeah, I'm sure they didn't ask for it. He broke bones, broke spirits, without due process, without standing on legal clause, all because of this twisted, delusional man, this vigilante, because of his righteousness. And Buck's like, but you've moved away from that now, huh? You're the mayor now. Yes, I have more resources, institutional resources, law enforcement resources. And Buck's like, using those to settle old scores could be seen as an abuse of powers. When I brought you over from your previous life, can you recall why I said I hired you? And Buck's like, I believe you call my ability to think. And Buck's like, I believe you called it my ability to think asymmetrically. Yes, Buck, yes. Now I have the responsibility to protect this city from anyone who steps outside the law. And it's just like, ugh. It's like, man, you are... and stuff like this, it just bothers me. It annoys me so much. I'm like, oh my gosh. And one, he's... Okay, you're mad because you were doing criminal things. It doesn't matter you're making money. You're illegally making money. It's going outside, whatever... And you're boo-hoo because someone took you down because you were doing illegal things. And he's just like, he's a baby and a bully. Then we see officers heading into like the abandoned tunnels. Angela like tells Matt at the hospital that she was right. Hector was right. And then Daredevil kicked the poop out of him. Daredevil saved her. Matt's like, yeah, I heard. He asks her like what she remembers about Muse, Track 61 or anything. And she's like, besides the murder basement and the bloodletting stuff? And Matt's like, yeah, besides that. She's like, those detective asked me a bunch of questions when I woke up. And we see Angie and the others are like taking pictures and stuff in the main room. And she's like, what's the point? Cops ain't gonna do nothing about it. And Matt's like, no, if they don't, somebody will. I promise you. Now, I need you to think really carefully. What can you tell me that was out of the ordinary? What was different, unique? And she's like, he had these sketches, and he was really amped about them, kept talking about them. Like, he kept doing them. And Matt's like, what of? Like murals, people? And she's like, faces. Then we see Vanessa. She meets with Luca under that like bridge thing where Buck went before, and he thanks her for a meeting. She says that he's been causing a lot of chaos. So if he's looking for attention, there are other ways to do it. And he's like, no, I'm a straight shooter. And he's like, I just don't do politics. And he's like, it's like, why the hell does he want to be mayor? What's his angle? And Vanessa's like, I don't have to explain my husband's actions to you or anyone. He's like, you think it's BS too, don't you? We're not earning like we were with you. Most of us aren't earning at all. And then he sends the Brit to ding me for nearly $2 million. And she's like, that was me. And he's like, oh. And she's like, you know the rules. Play nice, keep smart, keep low. You did none of that. Now you owe. Which that kind of rhymes. And he's like, the rules were worth it when you were running things. It was better. And he's like, you know that. It's like, I can see it on your face. But it's like, there's nothing on her face. She's like, nah. Then he's like, it's time for a change. And she's like, are you asking for my permission or my help? And Luke is like, that's up to you. So it's like, okay, where does Vanessa stand on this? Is she still loyal to Fisk? Does she? Because, she had an affair, and that's because he left her, and she was, emotionally alone or whatever. And I don't know. Heather meets with that young kid who went to her book signing or book whatever thing. He wanted to do sessions. He says that he's been having this dream. His 8th birthday, they're at his house upstate. They used to spend summers there. He goes outside and someone hands him a bouquet of like red balloons. There's, no other kid has them. Then his parents wheel out his giant birthday cake, and when he joins them, it's like they don't see him. No one knows he's there. And she's like, well, what do you think that means? He says that he has no idea. And she says that he said his parents put a lot of pressure on him. And he's like, no. It's like, I love my parents. Fisk asks Angie, like, who is Bastion Cooper? Are they certain that he's their guy? And she's like, not certain, but confident. So she found a piece of clothing in Muse's lair, which they assumed was fabric, but analysis said it was actually canvas. And she's like, this one's very rare and very expensive. There's only like 2 stores in the entire city that sells it. And in the last 2 weeks, 12 people had bought it, and they talked to 11 of them. And Bastion's the only one that they couldn't find. Fisk's like, that doesn't prove that he's guilty. And Angie's like, no, but when they started looking to his past, they made some troubling discoveries, and she hands him a folder. So Fisk reads, involuntary commitment when he was 15, expelled from Phillips Exeter, involuntary commitment when he was 17, and another when he was 20. He certainly does have issues. And Angie's like, there's one more thing. And she's like, how familiar are you with Taekwondo? And Fisk's like, I like boxing. So Heather's patient asks, it's like, did I ever tell you to compete in Taekwondo? So is this Muse? Is the patient, the book dude, Muse? And she's like, no. She's like, did you enjoy it? He's like, I hated it. It's like, my parents always wanted an athlete in the family. And she's like, did you compete to prove yourself to them? He's like, no, I competed because they made me. It's like, it was awful, but they wouldn't let me quit. Angie says that there are really only a handful of truly elite Taekwondo coaches, and Lee Suk-ji was one of them. And that's why his father hired Coach Lee to live with them and coach his son. It's like, Bastion was 16 at the time. And he's like, you said was. And she's like, 3 months after Coach Lee started training Bastion, his body showed up on the estate. Cause of death was listed as unknown, and there was never an investigation. And you think Bastion killed him? And she's like, I'll put it this way. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. But we're in a innocent until proven otherwise business, so... And then the kid with Heather says that he hated him, but in the end, he's like, I learned a lot from Coach Lee. So it is him, right? Heather chuckles and asks if he still competes, and he's like, God, no. He's like, all I ever wanted was to be an artist. He's like, to be the person I am now, and that's all thanks to you. And she's like, well, that's kind of you to say, but she's like, I'm just a conduit. And he's like, no, you're the key. He's like, I mean, don't you see that? I mean, you've unlocked something in me, Dr. Glenn, something I didn't know was missing. I mean, you've allowed my creativity to flourish to soar to heights I never even imagined. And she kind of looks down, like, is she concerned? And she's like, so, let's talk about homework. He's like, no, you're not listening to me, Dr. Glenn. This city is finally starting to see me for who I really am. And she's like, does that mean you've been displaying your art? And his nose like starts bleeding. And he's like, you could say that. Fisk asks if there's anything else that she's found in the tunnel. And Angie's like, I'm sorry, sir? And Fisk's like, there's rumors that Muse and the victim wasn't, well, they weren't the only ones down there. Rumors that the vigilante from Hell's Kitchen is back. And she's like, well, those aren't just rumors. We don't have confirmation of that, sir, but we're definitely open to the possibility. And he's like, yeah, thank you. You've done a good job. And she's like, of course, sir. And I'll take it from here. And she's like, thank you, sir. Uh-huh. But, okay, so here's the thing. If the vigilante from Hell's Kitchen, how do they know it's still him? He's been gone for a year. Where has he been? Is he just take a vacation? Did he die? Did something happen? So just because there's someone else back there, he's got a mask on. How do you know it's him? Unless Fisk knows that it is Matt and Matt's still around. But it's just so silly that they're saying like, oh, he's back. unless they really know. Heather kind of pushes some tissues at Bastion for his nose, and she finally calls him by his name. So yes, this guy is Bastion. This is not good. So he grossly pinches his nose and like wipes, like kind of scoops the blood off with his fingers. It's like gross. He kind of like looks at his finger in the blood and then at Heather, and he starts to wipe the blood on a pad of paper that's like on a table between them. And I was like, gross. But he's like drawing like eyes, like drawing a face. And he's like, becoming your true self can be scary. It's like you always say, we can't hide from ourselves. It's only when we embrace who we are that we can truly be free. And she's like, tell me about that drawing. He's like, you already know, Dr. Glenn. I can see it in your face. He like chuckles. And then like I think like a tear goes on her face and she kind of wipes it. And he goes over to her like and kneels. He's like, no. He's like, come on, this is a good thing. Now there are no more secrets between us. And she's like, is that? And he's like, my true self. And she like shakes her head. She's like, Bastion, please. He's like, I know what you're thinking, Dr. Glenn. There's only one question in your mind right now. Can I make it to the door in time? And as she gets up, he grabs her like right away, shoves her like against the wall, and there's like crunch. And then he just like looks down at her, like catching his breath. So this is not good. Cherry walks out of conference room. Kristen's like, where's Matt? And Cherry's like, he said he had to go uptown to pick up a report. And she's like, what report? And Cherry's like, to be honest, the kid's kind of on my poop list right now. So she's like, Cherry, I never thought that you'd be the one hiding things from me. Which I don't like Kristen for this part. And he's like, Kristen. But she's like, Matt has got a lot on his plate, and yet every time I see him, he's in some kind of private conversation with you. And Cherry's like, what do you want me to say? He's like, the same confidence I give Matt, I give to you. And Kristen's like, see, that doesn't work for me. We're a team here, and hiding things from one another isn't gonna get us anywhere. I trust you, and I trust Matt. Be nice if that was a two-way street. And it's like, oh, boo-hoo. It's like, if you have a problem with it, take it up with your partner, instead of like trying to bully or talk down to Cherry, who is, kind of a subordinate. It's just like, whatever, lady. And how do you know that what they're talking about? Like maybe it has nothing to do with work. Maybe, Matt is dealing with other stuff, which he is. The task force is at Muse's place. They're looking at his drawings. There's some other officers that are like, taking stuff, boxing stuff up. And then they leave. Daredevil drops down. He takes his glove off to like feel some of the pieces. And there's like several drawings, and it's like, wait, who is that? It looks like Heather. He's been drawing her, so he's like obsessed with her. Matt like starts feeling another like bigger one, and he starts to recognize it because, of course, earlier we see him. They're talking. He's like feeling her face. Like we always see that in shows or whatever. Blind people do that. And then another officer comes in. Hey. And Matt automatically throws a billy club, glonk, knocks him, hits him, like dings practically, hits him, knocks him out. It was Powell. So it's funny. He's like, hey, he's out like that. Then we see Fisk. Powell calls him. Are you sure it was him? And he's like, well, yeah, as far as I could tell. He's like, look, the facial recognition ID'd the sketch as Heather Glenn, a psychiatrist downtown. And Fisk, he kind of puts the phone down before, while Powell's still talking. And then because it says his psychiatrist, and I'm assuming he kind of likes her, she's doing good work. And Powell's just sitting on the phone, is like, he's still there. He's like, yeah, I'll put out an APB, but Fisk must have heard. He gets back on the phone. No, he's like, don't. The task force could handle this, which is stupid because you'd think he'd want everyone and anyone available to locate or warn her. You are the thin, dark line protecting the city. Remind them of that, and don't disappoint me, Powell. And he's like, I won't, sir. None of us will. Heather wakes up. Her wrists are tied, and she's still at her office, in her chair. Bastion's now dressed as Muse. It's like, did he just happen to be carrying his outfit with him? So he has a gun in his hand, and she's almost kind of glares at him. And she's like, Bastion, what are you doing? He's like, my name is Muse. And she's like, Bastion, please, don't fudge and call me that. And then he takes a marker, writes on her arms, like, I am Muse, M-U-S-E. And he's like, it was you. I read your books. I watch you, you understand who I am. And she kind of whispers, she's like, please don't hurt me. He's like, honestly, I can't guarantee that. And then he grabs her her head with both hands, And she's like, Muse, where are you going with all of this? And he like chuckles. And she's like, please don't. Then he puts like, like a tube that you use like around your arm. So he ties her bicep to get like a vein to pop out. And then, this was nasty. So right like at the elbow or so, he like kind of taps for like a vein. And then he starts like cutting down the vein on her arm, like her forearm. And she like kind of whimpers and cries. And she's like, please don't do this. Don't you care about all the people you've killed, huh? Do you feel nothing? And he kind of grabs her and like pushes her back in the seat. And starts like moving his hands like like he's about to, like, I don't know what he's going to do. And then he hears sirens. He's like, no. He's like, not yet. And he cocks the gun and he like looks out the window. And there's like, police squad pulls up. Heather like cries and he lays out like this big sheet. And, her arm's like bleeding. She's going to start bleeding out. And she's like, what the fudge are you doing? She's like, you kidnapped me, and then you're gonna what? Shoot me, huh? He's like holding a gun, but he's like he kind of walks to the other side of the room, and she's like, look at you. You can't even talk to me without that insane mask on. Anybody who needs a mask is a coward. And he like flicks open a blade, and he like growls. He pulls her like up, and she's like kind of struggles, and as they're like kind of struggling, she like headbutts him. She tries getting away, but he grabs her still. He picks her up, slams her down. And he gets on top of her, starts like choking her. And then, Daredevil crashes through the window. Muse like jumps up, goes for his gun. Daredevil throws a billy club, blink, hits Muse like smack in the center of his forehead. Muse has shot at Daredevil like the same time as he gets hit in the forehead. Daredevil blocks, swats the bullet aside with his other billy club. He charges. He gives Muse like a flying knee kick to the chest. Muse, I think he grabbed a mug or something off of Heather's desk on the side. I think he smashed it somewhere on Daredevil. I don't know. Daredevil tries getting the gun. He's like grabbing his hand. More police arrive outside, and you see the task force's members are there. The gun goes off. Heather is like on her like hands and knees, like almost gets shot. Goes right overhead, hits like a pillow, and then another shot like hits the ceiling. Daredevil and Muse continue fighting. Muse like ends up on the floor and like kind of looks at Heather. He like sits up, which is kind of silly. She's like kind of crawling away. Then he grabs his blade off the table. He charges at her, and then he gets shot in the shoulder. So I'm not sure like who shot her. I might have been Heather. She may have grabbed a gun. I don't know. But then Daredevil gets the billy club line, like the grapple line, whatever, around his neck and like pulls him back. And then he's on the ground. Daredevil kind of stomps on his shoulder, like where he got shot. He punches him like 3 times, but Muse still has some juice in him. He kicks him like from the ground, like kicks him like Matt's like side or something like that. Daredevil slams him into the shelf, like the books fall and everything like that. Punches him, and then the task force, they're like outside. They finally get the door opened, like on the street level. They start like moving into the building. Daredevil punches Muse like 3 times, throws him, Muse, and then he gets shot like 4 times by Heather. And her arm is still like sliced open, gross, and she passes out from like loss of blood. And so Daredevil goes to her. He's like, no. He's like, stay with me. He's like, it's all over. And there's like officers outside in the hallways. And then they like enter the room, the office. Cole radios like, Muse is dead. He's like, how do you know he's dead? I mean, I guess he can see the bullet wounds or whatever. And he's like, secure the building. Then he looks, he radios. He's like, roll me a bus ASAP. So I'm assuming an ambulance. He's like, looks like someone has stabilized the victim. And Powell like looks around and like he sees like the busted window. Then later at night, Fisk shows up at Heather's office. Cole's still there and says that he had a gun, part of some murder-suicide grand plan. And there's like, there's something else, sir. It's like, he wasn't the only one up here. What do you mean? So Cole's like, when we made entry into the room, Muse was already dead. The place was a chaotic mess. He's like, I mean, he was here, Daredevil. Are you sure? And he's like, positive. How is he positive? Because if they didn't see him, I don't think they saw him like jump out the window or anything. So Fisk like sits and he like looks at Muse. Well, like you said, it was chaotic up here and it's hard to see or to tell. What we do know is that you and your men did your job and that you stopped Muse, which is ridiculous because Heather stopped him. Heather shot him. You are heroes. There was no one else up here. Isn't that right, Sergeant North? He's like, yes, it is, Mr. Mayor. That's right. yes. And then Cole's like, I'm a go. And Fisk just like, turns and like looks at Muse. And then we see someone's watching a video report. It's like a shot from outside the office. You see like the window, and someone's like, I don't know what they think they saw, but I saw Daredevil go through the window. There's a knock. BB finds Daniel sitting in Fisk's chair, and she's like, oh, look at you. She's like, your boss will kick your ass for that. And Daddy's like, nah, he's loving me these days. Besides, he's dealing with a personal matter tonight. And she's like, so why drag me away from beers and Bushwick? And Daddy's like, New York One and all the majors, they come through your blog, don't they? She's like, of course, because I get all the real poop. And he's like Daredevil taking out Muse. He's like, you burned me with that mayor garbage thing. And she's like, look, you were high, you were slipping. And he's like, shut up. He's like, we're friends, BB, but I'm not a fudging chump, and you owe me. He's like, the task force took out Muse, not Daredevil. And she's like, yeah, the problem with that is it's BS. He's like, you're not stupid, BB. Mayor Fisk isn't fudging around, and neither am I. See, this is a carrot and stick situation. With a very big carrot and a very big stick. And she's like, are you actually threatening me? He's like, no, I'm presenting you with an opportunity. A great one with a great man. And what you decide in the next few seconds will determine how totally awesome or totally poopy the rest of your life is. And I'd be so stoked if you made the right call, And she just looks at him. That's just like, oh, it's so disgusting. And it's like so stupid. And so I don't understand. So basically, this is so stupid. He wants her to lie and say the task force did all the stuff. But what's going to happen when Heather's like, yeah, Daredevil was there. I never saw any of the task force members. I shot Muse. This is so annoying. Then, so Heather's in the hospital. Matt's like sitting in a chair. She starts waking up, and he goes to her side, and she's like, "Oh, it wasn't a nightmare." And softly, Matt's like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "Listen, the doctor came by, said you have minor lacerations." Minor lacerations. It's like a big gash in her arm. He's like, "No concussion, so we can take you home first thing in the morning, okay?" He's like, "You're gonna be okay." And she's like, "I killed him, Matt." And she's like kind of crying a little. He's like, "You didn't have a choice." And she's like, "How do you know?" He's like, "I know because I know you." And she's like, "There was someone else there. I mean, right before Bastion tried to." And that's when he showed up. I think he said my name. And Matt's like, "Who?" And she's like, "Daredevil." And then she turns up like the volume of the TV. "Breaking news downtown. The serial killer known as Muse is dead, and a Tribeca doctor is in stable condition." The screen thing says Muse was killed by the Mayor Fisk vigilante task force. "Muse was shot several times during rescue by Mayor Fisk's newly formed anti-vigilante task force," which is such BS. Then Fisk is like doing a press conference. "Masked men can no longer keep our city hostage. I promise to keep our streets safe, and I delivered." And then stupid Powell holds up the Muse mask, which seems so against like procedure since it's like evidence or whatever. But I guess because he's dead, it doesn't matter. Vanessa's sitting in a dining room, and then she texts on her phone. She puts an address. He's alone. Hits send. It's like, oh man, Vanessa. Luca, his phone vibrates. He's sitting like in a truck, and he looks at it, starts driving. Fisk is sitting in a restaurant eating. He's like in a back room. His back is to the door, and there's no one in this restaurant. Luca comes in, walks past the bar, goes to the back room, raises a gun at Fisk's head, but then pew, pew, he gets shot like in the head or chest or something like that. Luca falls. And Fisk, he doesn't flinch. He's still eating. "Thank you, Buck." And Buck, he's unscrewing a silencer. He was in the back corner in the shadow, like completely invisible. And Fisk is like, "Would you phone Vanessa and ask her if she would like me to bring her home some soleil mignon or something like that?" And he just continues eating. And we see like Buck like starting to clean up Luca. So took Luca out. I don't know what that's going to mean. Who's going to take his place? And like what consequences would there be? I don't know how that works. So those are your 2 episodes of Daredevil. So what is there one more after this? No, actually, no, I think there's 9 episodes. So we got 2 more episodes left. All right, let's talk about Adolescence. So Adolescence is a Netflix show. It's a Netflix miniseries. It's a British television show.
It's created by Jack Horn and Stephen Graham. It's just, this was crazy. So as I mentioned earlier, I saw a clip on Instagram, and it just seemed kind of heavy. And normally I don't really have time to watch other shows that are not part of the program or that I think might be appealing. So that being said, with this, I don't know how like the general random podcast from heck audience would think of this. It is a British crime show, and British shows have a slightly different feel. I'm not trying to insult anyone or saying that, but I feel like there's a different vibe sometimes, and there's a different energy. But maybe that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, so it really shouldn't be that big of a difference. But when I saw this, when I turned on Netflix, and I was like, oh, a Netflix miniseries. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Okay, so it was Friday night. Got home early. I had nothing to do. I was like, well, I'll go ahead and check this out. It's like spring break. School's out for a week. Maybe I'll just sit back and watch something, quote unquote, for fun. Sure, I could watch more Bondsman or anything, to try to keep up with something. But I was going to watch this for fun. That being said, I don't want to waste and it was so good. I do want to talk about it. So I'm actually kind of backing up and full disclosure, I'm editing this in after I've recorded, other parts of the podcast, just because I feel like it's worth talking. Now, I mentioned it came out on March 13th, so you may have seen it already, but holy crap. I mean, it hit me hard. I mean, this was such a powerful show, I feel like. And it's not quite that it makes you uncomfortable, but and I don't know if it's different if you're a father or a parent, not necessarily a father, but it's just so hard to watch, and the performances are amazing. I mean the kid who plays who is like in the lead, he was something. So let's see, Owen Cooper, he is 13. He plays a 13-year-old in here, and apparently this is his acting debut. But it's just like, oh my gosh! I mean, I don't even want to go. I don't want to spoil things, but so he was amazing, and then Stephen Graham is in this also, and. Oh, he was just amazing. So it's 4 episodes, and when I started watching this, I was like, I'm not gonna. I didn't even want to look at how many episodes there were. I was just gonna leave it. So I was like, is this? It's a miniseries. What does that mean? Is it 5 episodes? Because you can say it's 6 episodes miniseries. Is it 4? Is it 3? Is it 2? So it's 4 episodes. And then as I was watching, it was starting to get late. I was getting a little tired because long week and long day. But I was like, okay, maybe I'll just watch 3 episodes. And then watch the last one, Saturday morning or something. But then as I was watching, I was like, no, I'm just gonna do it. It's heavy. It's crazy. Now, one of the things that kind of gives us a different feel, and it's something that either people are gonna like or they're gonna just cry out that it's a gimmick. Each episode is kind of like a single take, like it's with one camera. And I didn't really notice it or pay attention so much in the beginning, but then I was like, wait, is this all been one cut? And it's kind of cool in a way, and I know it's been done before, but basically, the camera follows, the events on the screen, and then it doesn't cut to other scenes. It's just as someone's walking by another person, and then the camera follows that person, and it goes into this other room or this other place. But there's never any cut or passage. It's all one take. And if that's the case, and I don't know if there's movie magic where they can actually make a cut and edit 2 things together, I'm sure it can somehow be done, but it looks like it's all in one cut. So when these people, they're talking, they're doing their stuff, and they go in this room, and then the camera continues and follows the other thing. So it's almost like, okay, so those people just delivered their performance, read their dialogue and their lines, and did their scene. Now, the other people have to be on standby and be there, right? And heaven forbid if someone sneezes or coughs, or or flubs their line, what does that mean? I mean, Am I being like naive? Like, wow, they actually did this in one take? There's got to be some other parts, because there was one scene where someone kind of ad libbed something, and I saw in like the trivia on IMDb. I checked it out to see if there wasn't very much, but there is a thing where you can see the other character kind of like reacts to it, kind of smiles and the thing, but continued going. So if that's the case, I mean, one, that's dangerous. You can't just ad lib when it's so tight. But anyways, what is this about? Because, like I said, I'm not going to go full on detail. I don't feel it is right to spoil this, because I feel like you need to watch this. This is crazy. Spoiling very little, just to talk about some things. It starts off, so it's taking place in Britain, so in English town somewhere. It's crazy how it just starts off where the police are at this house. They bust through the door. They're there to arrest this 13-year-old boy because he's under suspicion of killing a classmate. The way it happens, as they bust through the door, they go upstairs, and it's like early in the morning. I don't know if it was like 6 a.m. or and like the kid's still in bed, and the other people are sleeping. And I mean, that would be freaky. It would be scary. And so like when you're watching this, it's like, okay, did this kid do it? Because it's like a 13-year-old actually murder someone. That's crazy. And you see like his reaction and everything like that, and it's just the way it's handled, like him being arrested and being scared and wanting to be with his parents and being separated, taken to the station. Parents are going to be following, and because of the single camera thing, so it just like follows him like in the police van, with the one like main detective, and his like child advocate like is there, and you just see the kid, he's just like looking out the window, kind of crying, and he's like, I didn't do anything, and everything like that. So it's just very, very, scary and powerful, and just the thought of this. And then, they get to the police station, and, they're going to start to process him, and, the parents are in a separate room. They're like, you'll see him in just a second, stuff like that. And then, like the dad is angry, and, of course, because, they just bust through, and like the mom mentions, you just broke our door down, and stuff like that. And the dad's trying to say that they knocked their daughter down on the floor, and the main detective is like, well, you can lodge a complaint, because the police said everyone down on the ground is for your safety and ours, and they're like, if you want to file a report, you can do that, and the daughter's like, no, she's like, that's what happened. So just like little things like that. I mean, it's just the idea. All of a sudden you're sleeping and it's bust through. And from a parent's perspective, like, wait, your kid is being accused of murder someone? It's like, you're crazy. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? So it goes from there, and then the whole thing, like I said, the booking and getting a lawyer or solicitor and stuff like that. So it's just kind of terrifying, and just the performances are really good. And I felt it was pretty credible. Like there was no like, oh, this person's clearly acting. It just felt like I don't know. Like I said, it's just very, very good performance all across the board. And then the second episode, like the detective, like and his partner, they go to the school to talk to like teachers and other kids. And man, this was like on a different level. This was a hard episode to watch as well, because you look at just like the attitude of these kids, and for me being a teacher, you see like the attitude of the kids, attitude of some of the teachers, and just like trying to get by, and just like the kids, and some kids kind of like a lack of respect for authority. And at this point, everyone kind of got wind of what happened. They know there was a murder. They know that the kid Jamie was arrested. They're not talking about it. Like the detective's not saying, he's like, there's been an incident, and they're like, yeah, we know. Everyone's been talking and stuff like that. But these kids, because they're kids, and they don't always know right from wrong or whatever. But just like the way they talk, the way they talk to the teachers and they talk to the detective. It's just like, holy crap. And like, kids cracking jokes, and the teacher like trying to keep the kids in line. And it's just like, oh, it was just so kind of gross. But, that's how things are. And, I don't think a lot of people really realize what what schools can be like, and there's all sorts of schools, and you have well-behaved schools and not so well-behaved schools, but kids are kids, and they don't intentionally mean to do what they do. They just, like I said, they just don't know better in some cases. And whether it's impulse control or just society, whatever, and that's another big thing about this show is like, there's a lot of stuff about social media and how it affects, and that's kind of like the big thing. And I'm sure some people are going to complain about that like, oh, you're trying to say that social media is responsible for this or that or whatever. But I mean, it is I've joked before where like some of my students where they say bet, that's like one of the new lingo, or chat. It's like they come up with these new phrases. Where are they getting that from? I don't think it's from any TV shows or anything. It's from like social media, from TikTok or Snapchat or whatever. And, someone starts using this new lingo, quote unquote lingo, and that's supposed to be like the cool thing to say. So then other people start saying, so that's just like such a minor thing, using a phrase, their influence to say this, or sometimes the way, obviously the way they dress, or the way they may walk, or the way they may talk. Like all of a sudden it's like, wait, why are you enunciating your words like that? Why, where's this coming from? So, obviously kids are influenced by social media because in a lot of cases there's nothing else. Even if they're, great family life, parents, just like that, it's not like the parents, they're going to necessarily model themselves after the parents' behavior or something like that. I don't just think it doesn't work that way, because kids seek out other things. Their parents could be a strong influence, a good, strong, solid family could have a good influence, but even a good family may not be able to control everything, because there's just so many other factors. And then depending on the friends that the kids, I'm so off a tangent on just whatever, but society, but you just see all this stuff from the school, and just, man, it is a mess. And just dealing with everything. So that's basically what the second episode is, trying to get more information, trying to find out what's going on. Could this possibly, is this really what happened? Why would this happen? What is going on? The third episode, and this was a crazy episode too. So you have the kid Jamie. He's basically talking with like a psychiatrist, and this is after several visits, and she's just trying to get like a kind of like a personality assessment, and it sounds like he's talked to other psychiatrists as well, because she doesn't want to hear what they said, because she doesn't want to be biased. She wants to form her own opinion and stuff like that. And at this point, I did look at like the reviews, the user reviews, and some people are complaining, saying that like the questions that she was asking were like inappropriate, like she was like kind of pushing him. And because there's a lot of things where, so basically what happened, there's a girl that was killed, and I'm just gonna say, if he killed this girl, why would this be? And there's a girl at his school, and then there's a lot of things like, well, could this be because of social media stuff? Is there anything, because they did interact online, they only had a couple classes together, were they friends, were they not friends, were they friendly, were they not, what is the deal here? And so, she's asking a lot of questions. There's a lot of stuff like how he feels like as 13-year-old boy, does he think like a man should do this, and what is the behavior like? What is his father? And so she keeps kind of sort of leaning towards this like male toxicity. It's hard for me to say. And so some people are complaining that it was inappropriate. She's like trying to anger him or stuff like that. But the thing is, this is after several interviews. So, she's done all this stuff, and it's not like she's trying to trick him. But there's like just some crazy, like intense moments in this episode. And it's just, like I said, it's almost, it does kind of make you feel a little uncomfortable. And it's just like, what does this mean and everything? And then the last episode, it kind of focuses more like on the family. So like what are they doing all this? And yeah, and that's all I really want to get into, but it's just so hard to watch as seeing like everyone, just across the board, like everyone dealing with everything. And it's like, oh man. And after I watched it, I got emotional. Just, I just sat there, the credits are going, and I couldn't like disconnect from it. And I saw some people complain that, the ending, leaves some things hanging. It doesn't but I feel like, it does. It doesn't leave you hanging. I don't agree with that. Yes, there are a couple other minor things that could be like, well, what about this? What about this? And I don't think it really matters. And there's a tiny bit of time does pass by. I'll spoiler with that. Not much, but there is times where they could have pursued this thing or this thing. Some things that were brought up in the second episode, like at the school. I feel like they could have addressed that and dealt with that and whatever. We just didn't see that because it goes from the second episode to the third. There's, a little, tiny passage of time there. So I don't feel like they dropped the ball and everything like that. I felt like they told what they wanted to tell. And, again, make this a 4-hour show, 4 episodes, and not really take the time to jump into every little tiny single detail. And by having kind of jumping a tiny bit, we don't need to see all that stuff because it's kind of, you get the idea. So holy crap, it's just I don't it's hard for me to say that I like the show or I love the show because it's hard, but it's powerful. So I'm not saying don't watch it because it's for the faint at heart. It's not, but it's kind of eye-opening in a way. And I feel like you should check it out because there are some major performances and it's just heavy duty. So check that out on Netflix, Adolescence, 4 episodes. And like I said, I watched it all in one night. I just boom, 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 just kept going. And wow. That's all I'm going to say is wow. Okay, then, as I mentioned beginning, the Bondsman. So it's on Prime. There's, I believe, 8 issues. All of them are out. Kevin Bacon. And as you know, when I saw the trailer for this, I was like, this kind of reminds me a little of Evil Dead, like Ash versus the Evil Dead. It kind of seems like it's a little kind of lighthearted, slightly goofy. And basically what the premise is, from what I gathered from the trailer and what we see laid out here, is Kevin Bacon's he's a bondsman. He goes after people who have warrants, he brings them in. He gets killed, he goes to hell, gets released, and basically he has to hunt down demons who escape from hell. And, that's his second lease on life. I don't know what necessarily, so I've only watched the first episode so far. I was going to watch more. It just didn't happen. I end up falling. I keep falling asleep late at night, watching stuff. And sometimes, I watch on my laptop or, I pause things or whatever. And then it'll be 1 o'clock or 2. I'm like, holy crap. It's I gotta get to bed so I can get up in a few hours. So I only watched the first episode. Maybe, I'll do some more. I'm not sure. The first episode was okay, but it's really setting things up. By the time the first episode ends, the setup is there. So now it's okay, it's going to get interesting. So we see Kevin Bacon. His name is Hub Halloran. He pulls up to a hotel. He's, hunting down this dude. He's got a warrant. He puts on a bulletproof vest and everything. He's got a shotgun. He knocks on the door, and the person inside the TV turns off. And they tell Hub the fudge off or whatever. So he puts a hornet's nest in a vent and air conditioner vent or something like that. So this guy runs out of the room, and Hub, Kevin Bacon, had one of those dog noose things on a stick. I don't know if they're just for dogs. So he runs right into it. But then it turns out this isn't the guy he was looking for, and it's this other guy he knows, Billy Earl, and he recognized him. And then this other guy, because he got a tip that this other guy was supposed to be there, and Billy's like, yeah, dumbass, I know. And then Hub gets shot in the back by someone inside. So it was Clyde Earl, is Billy's brother. And then what he does, he goes up to Hub. So Hub's laying on the ground. He's wearing a bulletproof vest, but still, shot in the back. So Clyde goes up to him, grabs him by the hair, pulls his head up, slices his throat. He's dead. But then something happens. The body reanimates. He finds himself between the walls. He's in this little tight confined space, the drywall or something like that. He ends up punching out, through the wall, and he's in a hotel room. He looks in the mirror. His throat is still open and nasty, and he hears some voices outside. There's this guy named Tater,
so Hub knows him as well, and he sees him, he screams, but Hub punches him, and all this stuff like that. And it turns out that Tater was there to burn down the motel type of thing, and because I guess he's working for the Earl brothers or something like that, and they stole Kevin Bacon's truck too. So he and he takes cigarettes off of Tater, and he starts smoking, and like smoke's coming out of his throat, and then what he ends up doing, so he puts him in the trunk of his car. I'm assuming it's Tater's car, and then he puts, there's like duct tape on the tail light, so he like rips off a piece, puts it on Tater's mouth, and then he takes another piece, puts it on his throat. But before he does that, Tater's like, "Are you dead now?" Or he's like, "Wait, am I dead? Are we both dead?" And stuff like that. So he goes back to his place. There's like this like service station, whatever, and someone named Kitty calls out. It turns out it's his mom. And he goes into like the office part, and the phone's ringing. He's constantly getting these like messages, and he assumes it's like a telemarketer or something like Pot of Gold, which is like the name of the episode. But then he goes to clean up, and his throat is like, it's healed now. So it's like, what does that mean? He goes to his mom's porch, and there's a reverend there too, and he's like, "Wait, didn't you kick my mama out of your congregation?" And this Pastor Ron says that they're discussing her return, and Kitty's like, she says something like if her son would stop detaining skips during Sunday services. So I don't know if he's holding people who were skipped out under bail or I don't know. He's kind of rude to the pastor. It's like Kevin Bacon. He's just like a real chip on his shoulder type of guy, whatever. And because like when the pastor's like, he's like, "I'll see myself out," and he's like, "I'll be praying for both of you," and Kevin Bacon's just like, "Bye now," like very loud and sarcastically. He tells his mom that he's got to find the Earl brothers because they stole her truck, and because he thought Billy Earl was still in jail, and she's like, "No, he posted bail last Monday." So she like works in the business too, must do like the paperwork and stuff like that. And Hub's like, "But the brothers don't have that kind of money for bail." And she says that Lucky Callahan bailed him out. So he starts starting to think about like what does Lucky have to do with anything? And it turns out that Hub used to be married to someone named Mary Ann, and they have a kid. Mary Ann is apparently with this Lucky guy now. So Hub's like, okay, so the Earls were just hired hands. So he goes into the garage, or like the office, the business thing, and he whites out an affidavit for arrest. And so he whites out a name. He types on there Lucky's name, and the phone rings again for the Pot of Gold, and he unplugs the phone. And then in the desk drawer, there's like a bunch of like cell phones and stuff like that. They start ringing, and they all have like Pot of Gold image on there. So he just like ignores it. So then in the trunk of the car, like Tater's still there, but then he drives to this place called the Boxcar Club, and we see a missing person sign for someone named Cheryl Dawson. I don't think that was addressed here, so it must be coming up in the later episodes. He goes in a boxcar and like pulled up in the front, Lucky's car there because it has like a personalized license plate, whatever. Mary Ann is introduced. She's like a singer. She starts singing. Hub. There was one point he's like, "Wait, what day is it today?" And it's like Wednesday. So I don't know if he missed some days when he was quote unquote dead. He watches Mary Ann, and then he sees Lucky like walk into like the back. So he goes like through the kitchen, and he's like, "Shh," whatever. He follows him, and then he's like, "Hey, bird poop, surprised to see me?" He's like, "I'm supposed to be dead." "Well, I guess not." It's like, "Why don't we step outside?" And then this young guy comes in the hall, and turns out it's his son. So he's older than I thought. He's like, "Dad," he's like, "Hey, you hear Mom's new backup band?" He's like, "Well, I found them on TikTok. It sound pretty great, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, they sound good. Nice work, kiddo." And then Mary Ann comes in the hall. I guess she only sang one song. So she hugs her son, then Lucky. And then she sees Hub, and she's like, "Oh, you working tonight, Hub? Or is that your party vest?" Because he's got his vest on. He's like, "I got a warrant for your boyfriend, but I guess I could serve another time." And then she's like, "You're so full of it." And she's like, "But I do need to talk to you about something." And then he like whispers to Lucky, he's like, "I want my mama's truck back." But Lucky doesn't say anything. Goes in her dressing room, and he's like, "You're too good to be doing cover songs, and you're a damn sight too good for that empty 10-gallon hat out there." Because he's wearing a cowboy hat. He's like, "Did anyone ever tell him that we don't wear cowboy hats in Georgia or something like that?" then she's like, oh, he loves it and sweet. And he's like, sweet? He's like, Lucky's not the guy who you think he is. He paid some guys to try and slit my throat. And he's like, look. But there's like no mark on his neck. So then she's like, well, it looks pretty good. And he's like, well, you look pretty whatever. She says something. He's like, I just don't want you to get hurt. So she needs him to sign a form so he can take Kate out of state to be a stagehand because she has an audition in Nashville. And Hub's like, that's great. Who's it with? But then Kate walks in and tells Hub someone from Gold Pot called for him. They said it was urgent, so they're calling him there too. But then Hub asked, where did Mr. Big Hat go? And Kate said that Lucky went over to play cards at some other place. So then outside the car's gone. So he drives. He as he's driving in the car with Tater still in the trunk, he sees Pastor Ron standing outside a church. But it's like, wait, are his eyes glowing? And then he starts walking towards the car. And as he drives by, and like, it's like, is he chasing him? Like, what's going on here? So he's probably like possessed. It's spoiler. So then he goes out to this place in the woods, takes out a shotgun from the trunk, talks to Tater a bit, but then he goes up. There's this guy, like a security shirt, like taking a leak. It's Tiny Earl. He's another one of the Earl brothers. And so he goes to him, but then it turns out that he's like, after he like knocks him down or something like that, Hub figured out, he's like, oh, Lucky's not inside, is he? He's like, you drove his car here as bait, and your brothers are inside waiting to kill me. But the Tiny's like, you're supposed to be dead. And he's like, nah, my mama raised me tougher than that or something like that. So then he shoves him into the door, and one guy like pulls a gun. He shoots his hand, like shoots a gun out of his hand. It like blows off his fingers. And he's like, ah. And then one of the other girls like you were dead. So Hub's like, I take it you're the one that tried to kill me. So they start arguing over who messed up and stuff like that. And then he's like, how much is Lucky paying you? And then the one, I don't know if it was Tiny, one of the brothers, he's like, you don't have to say poop. You can't prove nothing. And he's like, go ahead, call the cops on us. But then he's like, you won't, shoot us. Basically, he's like, you ain't no murderer. And Hub's like, self-defense, Hoss. He's like, I'll sleep just fine. He's like, now we can talk about walking out alive once Lucky gets here. And one of the brothers, I think it was Billy, he's like, Lucky ain't coming. He's like, oh yeah, once you text him that you're letting me go free unless he pays you cash, double. So Lucky's back at the club, looking at his phone. He's cursing at the hillbilly mothers. And then Marianne's like, oh, what happened to your card game? And he's like, well, I don't want to miss your next number. But then he's holding his phone. He's like, oh, but I might have to. He's like, the food company's saying I underpaid last delivery. So at the cabin, they're like waiting. The brothers think that Hub's bluffing, that he's not going to do anything, but then someone's coming. But they're like, that's not Lucky. So it's a pastor from the church. So Hub, he's holding one guy back, and I think two of them are in the main room. And he's like, get rid of them and do it quick. So they're in the back room, and then the lights start flickering. And the brother's like, you don't look so good. And then Clyde and Billy start screaming. Hub's like trying to watch through like a crack in the door, and he sees like one of them kind of like gets like twisted up or something like that, and the other's like levitating and floating, gets like thrown at the door, and like blood squirts through. So then Hub sees like the pastor walking, like he like turns his head, his eyes are glowing, charges at the door. Hub's like shoots at the door with a shotgun, and then he runs out the back door. He makes it to the road. This truck is like coming down the road, so he waves him down. He gets a ride back to his place. The phone rings. It's a pot of gold place again, whatever. But then Kitty calls him. She's like, oh, we're in here, boy. And he's like, oh, company? So there's this lady sitting on a sofa. Her name's Midge. She's with Kitty. And she's like, oh, you're a hard man to get a hold of. She's like, I'm here for your orientation. And he's like, yeah, I'm not interested. And Kitty's like, she knows things about how Midge is like, died. And she's like, and you went to hell. And you're only standing here now because we brought you back, at least temporarily. She's like, think of it as like a work release and I'm your parole officer. Kitty's like, I told her that's just plain silly and blasphemous. And she, I wouldn't have that kind of talk on my property. But Midge like patiently holds up a finger, and it seems to have an effect on Kitty. Like it stops her talking. So she's like, do you think it's silly, Mr. Halloran? He's like, well, I'm not the church-going type. And she's like, but your friend tonight was, though, wasn't he? And she's like, look what good it did him. And she's like, we don't exactly discriminate. The last gal doing your job wasn't even Christian. So I wonder if that's the lady in the missing signs. He's like, what job, lady? And she's like, oh, you're still a bounty hunter, Mr. Halloran. But now you hunt demons for the devil. And that's the end of the first episode. And then we see a bunch of scenes for the season, and it looks like it gets pretty crazy. It looks very ambitious and very, like I said, kind of like Ash versus Evil Dead. So first episode for me was a little slow, but now that we got the main part set out, it could be a fun movie or a fun series. So we'll see if I can squeeze in some more episodes. So check it out. It's on Prime. All right, and the movie feature is A Working Man. So this is a Jason Statham movie, and it's directed by David Ayer. What I didn't realize, it was the script was the screenplay was co-written by Sylvester Stallone and David Ayer, and it's based off of book Levin's Trade by Chuck Dixon. So Chuck Dixon, I just know him from DC Comics, once upon a time, way back. And I didn't realize, because when I saw his name, I was like, this wasn't based off a comic, was it? Because, a lot of times, there's other stuff, whatever. But then, yeah, a lot of times comic writers also write novels because they're writers. So that was kind of interesting, because as I'm watching this, I don't know anything about this Levin's Trade, not Levin's Tale. It kind of felt like, is this like a franchise? Is there more than one book? And are they trying to make this franchise? And I will say right now, I was like, I'd be fine with that if they did. But it's interesting, when I first saw the preview or the trailer for this, I was like, is this The Beekeeper Part 2? Because didn't David Ayer also do Beekeeper movie with him? So it's kind of funny. Now, because since this is a Jason Statham movie, and this came out last week, obviously, this week is the Minecraft movie, and I'm like, I'm not going to see the Minecraft movie, and I wanted to see this. So is this going to be like the best movie ever made? No. What's interesting, what's surprising, on a Rotten Tomato score, which again, this doesn't always mean something, the critic score is a 50%. This is better than a 50% movie. The popcorn meter is 88%. 88%. That says something. That means the audience enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed this movie. And that's why I wanted to see it, because when I looked at this, when I was like, what am I going to watch this week? I was like, there was still the Lady in the Yard that I'm curious about. But then I was like, I kind of want to see this Jason Statham movie, because they're maybe they're a little predictable, formulaic or whatever, but it kind of goes back to it's like Roadhouse, or just whatever these the 80s action movies where you got the action hero trying to save the day, and sometimes those are nice to see. They're a little uplifting, and just get some whatever testosterone movie action. And the thing with Jason Statham, where he's not necessarily like your big beefy action hero. He's an action hero who can fight, and he's got skills. So it's a little slightly different thing, and that's basically what you get out of this movie. So basically, I feel like this is going to be a short segment. Jason Statham, Levin Cade, he was in the Royal Marine. He was a commander or something like that. And now he works as like a construction foreman or something like that at this big Garcia construction company or something like that, who is actually Michael Pena. So when I saw Michael Pena's name on the credit, I'm like, oh man, is Michael Pena going to be the bad guy again? Because he was in the Silent Night, the David Harbour Santa Claus movie, and he's kind of a bad guy in the Menu, right? So I was like, is he just doing bad guy stuff? But no, he's not. So he's the boss of the construction company, and the family. Everyone's really nice to him. Like people are always giving Jason Statham like food, because they know he was just eat canned tuna or whatever like that. And like one of the other workers, I don't want to give too much away, but he looks out for everyone. And what happens? This is where things were a little confusing, and I don't want to give too much away. But one of the other workers, some guys like pull up in car, they're like kind of like roughing him up or whatever, and they're like, Jason Statham sees this and goes up to him. They're like, this doesn't concern you, and the other guy's like, no, don't worry about it. And then he starts getting into him, like basically like protecting this worker, and and then there are like more guys come and he takes them all out, and he doesn't injure anyone, but he had cut, because when he sees them talking to him, he picks up like a bucket full of screws, and he like heads over and like, hey, what's going on, boys, type of thing. And then when they start like threatening, he like throws
like all the screws at the guy's face, or one of the guys, and you know, just gets into it and everything like that. So he tells them to leave or whatever and don't show up again and everything. But it's like, that could make things worse because you're, you know, ticking them off, then they're going to retaliate, you know, times 10 or something. But what ends up happening is Michael Pena's daughter goes out to celebrate. It's just so silly. Celebrate completing a semester of college, and she wants like a party bus and stuff like that. And he's like, Michael Pena's like, I don't think that's really that big of a feat or whatever. And so she's going out. She goes to, you know, to some clubs with friends, and I think they have fake IDs and everything. And you see like people like watching her, like taking videos or something like that. This one guy, which I couldn't stand, the guy taking the video. He's got this beard. There's just things about the performance and the character. I don't know. It just, because like sometimes when he talks like his partner, he's like, oh, that guy was really mad. Or it just felt like, I don't know, like not necessarily comical, but it just kind of took me out of the movie a little bit. And of course, you know, there are some kind of over the top villains, like bad, like henchmen. They're a little like, kind of, again, sort of comical, not really. And then it's like, but that's fine. I mean, overall, like I said, I like this movie. So what ends up happening is Michael Pena's daughter gets kidnapped. And at first it's like, why is she kidnapped? And what I will say, it's not a big shocker, but it's not by the guys that were roughing up the other one. It's a whole, this other thing. So I thought that, you know, is there going to be like a ransom note? What's going on? And, you know, and I thought, is Michael Pena up to something? Is he, you know, making some bad decisions, investment decisions, or did he, you know, upset someone? Or it's like, no, none of that. So that's, you know, you got to give it credit to that, because all that stuff seems like overly obvious when I was like, okay, it's because of this, right? Or because of this, but it had nothing to do with all that. So it was really, really good. And then I like that they did that. And Jason Statham, you know, he's not in that Marine life. You know, he did some harsh things. You know, he was skilled, and he had to, you know, whatever he served. And he doesn't really want to get involved, because like Michael Pena, he like tries giving like a couple stacks of money. He's like, you know, go, you know, find her, bring her home. This is what you do, right? You find people. And he's like, I don't do that anymore or whatever. But then he has no choice. And, you know, he does get mixed up, and it turns out to be this bigger, you know, all these horrible people and just this like chain of command. And it just, like, if you see the trailer, you know, you see some of them, and it just kind of builds and builds. And then he's taking some people out, and they're going to not be happy with that. You know, they're going to want to retaliate. And then also there's like family members that he's taking out. So like the higher up person who's like, those are my kids, or, you know, so it just gets worse and worse. But Jason Statham doesn't back away, and he tries like infiltrating and working his way. So there's like all these kind of different angles, and it's not just like straight like going from here to save the girl. You know, he's got to go through all these other hoops to get there and do some other stuff, interact with other people. So I feel like all that kind of made it a little more interesting, and it kind of, you know, changed the pace a little bit. So there's some good, you know, cool moments, and of course there's some cheesy stuff and some cheesy dialogue, but I think that's exactly what, you know, you would expect out of this. So I don't understand why, you know, there's so much whatever, you know, not happiness about this, or why, you know, why it's got such a low score. Actually, let's go to receptions to see. So 4.9 out of 10. An efficient action flick that delivers the meat and potatoes of a Jason Statham vehicle while skimping out on personality. Yeah, I mean, that's just Jason Statham. You know, he's not like a super friendly guy, because he's just on the business. Working man clocks in and out without much fuss or flair. Okay. I mean, it gets the job done. It's Metacritic, which used a weighted average, assigned a score of 53 out of 50 based on 29 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average of B to an A+. A B on an A+ to F scale. The Guardian gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Wow. At its best, a movie like Working Man functions as an update to the hard-boiled detective story, with a resilient bruiser conducting his own off-the-book
book's missing person investigation. But Stallone and Ayer don't have the patience for too much skullduggery. Skull smashery is more their thing. And as an action movie, A Working Man doesn't reach the giddy highs of Statham's best. Yeah, okay. Hollywood Reporter. Oh yeah, because David Harbour is in this. The film feels overlong at nearly 2 hours. I didn't think so. With repetitiveness setting in early, but does have enjoyable eccentric touches, several of which smack of Stallone, who often infuses his portrayals with subtle humor. Okay. The budget was $40 million, and it looks like it's made $35.2 so far. So, okay. But I thought it was fine. The only thing I have issues with, there's a character, which I don't want to spoil this, but you'll see, if you watch the movie, you'll see like towards, there's a character who is kind of like non-professional character who ends up doing some kind of like who is this character? Because they're putting up a fight and doing, and it's one thing, if you, there's like no reason whatsoever that for this character to suddenly start doing some things and standing up to people, and it's like, wait, what? So to me, it feels like if there was like another movie, is this other person going to be involved in getting involved in the action? Which Jason Statham probably wouldn't want that because he doesn't want to bring in innocent people, but it almost felt like that's what they're trying to establish. Oh, the other thing that's different here, Jason Statham has a daughter himself, which is part of the incentive. This is why he got involved, because he's like, if you're a father, are you a father of a daughter or something like that? So you would do anything to protect your daughter. So that's why he gets mixed up in this, and it's interesting because he has a daughter, and there's a whole backstory with that. It adds other elements to it like that, and she's like super young, and he just wants to help her out, but he's had a complicated life and serving and everything like that, so he wasn't always there for her, and other people aren't necessarily happy with him and that. So there's different layers to this, and some of it's maybe superficial or not, and I don't know how this compares to a novel or anything like that. And maybe someday I may maybe I'll do an audible and listen to it at some point. But I thought it was a good movie. It was enjoyable, and if you're looking for an action movie or whatever, and if you're a fan of Jason Statham stuff, then I think you should check this out, because it was good. It was interesting. It was entertaining, and I think it was everything that I wanted an action movie. I knew what to expect with the Jason Statham movie, and that's what you get. So I would recommend it. So I think you should go see it. There's really not much else to say. There's it does get a little violent at some point, but it's kind of interesting that it kind of builds up. So maybe they just kind of ease you into it. There's a couple like, ooh, that's gonna hurt and stuff like that. But I enjoyed the movie. It's not anything grand or glorious, but it was fun and entertaining, and again, exactly what you would expect from Jason Statham and David Ayer. So I think it's better than 50%, whatever. So go see it. And that is going to be it for this week. Big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to would be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes podcast entertainment every single week. And I've been doing Fantastic Four, John Byrne's run from the 80s. I'm probably going to do at least one more because we're in the middle of like a story, or it just last issue started up something, so we need to at least conclude that. We'll see what I'll do, off of mine soon, or maybe something else. I'm open to suggestions. But if you can't commit to monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 4. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. What is going to be next week's movie? That is a good question. I don't know if there's so I think we got Black Mirror coming out for TV. I don't know if any more Bondsman, or we'll see about that. But as far as the movie goes, so we have some options. There's I'm leaning a little more towards Drop, because I've seen the trailer a few times. It's a Blumhouse movie. This lady goes on a blind date, and she's kind of reluctant, because she has a son, like babysitter, friends, probably whatever. And then she's at a restaurant, and she gets a meme notification dropped on her phone, and basically someone's in there. They want her to kill her date, type of thing, is what it boils down to. You see this in the trailer, and then what happens is she's like, "What? I'm not going to do this," and they're like, "Well, if you don't do it." And then there's like a link or whatever or something, and they tell her to check her home security footage, and you see people around her threatening her kid and stuff like that. So I don't know where else it's going to go, but it looks like things build up and get crazy. The other option, which I don't know about this, is The Amateur. So this is with Rami Malek. His wife dies, and he wants to get revenge, but he's more like an accountant, whatever, numbers guy, and he wants to be trained to do that, but he's not a killer, so we'll see. But I'm thinking it's Drop. I may change that. With that, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing fun things. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope everything is going peachy keen, and I hope you remember, be good to each other.